The fog was very thick in the Sea of Devils and it was filled with Ying energy. Wang Lin had only been here for a short while, but his clothes were already soaked. The sticky feeling of his clothes clinging to him was very uncomfortable. As for Li Muan, her face was no longer pale but slightly red, and her skin was silky smooth. Her clothes were also soaked by the fog, revealing her exquisitely charming body. Wang Lin took one look and withdrew his gaze. His heart wasn't moved at all. If it wasn't for the fact that Li Muan could make the distance Heaven's pill and various other pills, he wouldn't have allowed her to follow him. The Sea of Devils was a huge basin. After descending for a long time, he still hadn't seen the bottom. However, he noticed that the deeper he went, the stronger the Ying energy was. Soon, strange creatures started to appear in the fog. Some of them even had spiritual energy fluctuations. This made Wang Lin very surprised, but luckily, he was able to detect them soon enough, so there were only a few scares and never any real danger. Li Muan was extremely nervous as she had heard too many rumors about this Sea of Devils. There was no reasoning with people here as power was the only thing that mattered. There was also a lack of female cultivators, so unless she had a powerful backing, she would likely have a very miserable fate. Before the upheaval in Hofan, there were always a lot of cultivators stationed at the border of the Sea of Devils. This often included nascent soul cultivators. Their sole purpose was to prevent demonic cultivators from raiding their country. Luckily, the powerful forces in the Sea of Devils were all in the center. The groups on the edges were all small, so as long as they were careful, nothing too big would happen. Wang Lin didn't know how long they had been flying for when he suddenly stopped. Li Muan wasn't able to react fast enough, so she ran into his back. Wang Lin coldly looked at the fog in the distance and said, "Come out now." 3 thin and tall figures appeared in the fog, but the fog was too thick for Wang Lin to see their exact figures, though it was obvious that they were 3 male cultivators. One of them shouted in a sharp voice, "Arrogant! This area belongs to my fighting evil sect. If you are smart, leave behind the female cultivator or else." Before he finished speaking, Wang Lin let out a cold snort. "Noisy! Die!" The map had stated that there was no reasoning in the Sea of Devils, only the strong were respected. He waved his right hand and his G-realm divine sense spread out. Those 3 were only mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivators, so Wang Lin could kill them at will. The red lightning suddenly flashed by the 3 of them. Their eyes became dimmer and dimmer before their souls shattered and died. Wang Lin walked forward and grabbed their bags of holding. He then kicked their bodies into the thick fog and left without taking another look. Li Muan was horrified as she looked at what occurred before her. This was the first time she had seen Wang Lin act. The other 3 were all at the mid-stage of Foundation establishment just like she was, but they had all died mysteriously without any means to resist. She was shocked as she looked at Wang Lin's back. Then she suddenly thought back to half a month ago, when her brother Li Qiqing said something about the great battle over the spirit vein where thousands of cultivators participated. During the early stage of that battle, something strange was happening to the cultivators of Xiansu. All of the Foundation establishment cultivators of Xianwu were mysteriously dying and falling from the sky. If it was only 1 or 2, then it wouldn't be so bad, but Xianwu only had 200 or so Foundation establishment cultivators, and almost half of them died mysteriously like this. When she initially heard of this, she didn't believe it. She thought that it was only rumor, but looking at how those 3 Foundation establishment cultivators had died, she couldn't help but remember that story. She followed behind Wang Lin and asked with a trembling voice, Senior apprentice brother, back in the Hofan Union, which army were you part of?" Wang Lin didn't turn his head as he coldly said, "The 10th Army." The moment the words "the 10th Army" entered Li Muan's ears, it was like lightning had struck her mind. She clearly remembered that her brother had said that the 10th Army was the one that fought that battle. Now she was almost certain that this cold-looking youth was the one responsible for massive amounts of deaths of the Foundation establishment cultivators of Xianwu. Thinking about this, her last sliver of will to resist evaporated completely. She couldn't even summon the strength to back out. But just then, she suddenly remembered a description of a strange technique that she had read back in the Lu He sect and blurted out, "The technique you just used, was it the death spell?" Wang Lin's heart was slightly startled, but nothing showed on his face. He calmly replied without turning his head, "You also know about the death spell?" The moment Li Muan heard Wang Lin's words, she was even more certain that he knew the legendary death spell. The death spell was known as a technique from the ancient cultivation world that was incredibly hard to master. However, once mastered, all one had to do was look at someone, say the word die, and that person would immediately die. This type of technique was considered to be one of the most evil techniques among demonic cultivators. It requires one to fuse 3 types of energy. The first is EN energy, which comes from female cultivators' nascent souls, using the EN harvesting technique. The second energy is death energy, which is obtained by absorbing energy from the bones of the dead. Although this is similar to EN energy, the quality is very different. The third energy is killing energy. Once someone has killed enough, their body will produce its own killing intent. Once this killing intent gains its own consciousness, it becomes the killing energy needed. Fusing the 3 energies pushes the person to have to survive a trial to continue cultivating this technique. However, every night the user suffers unimaginable pain, and they have to survive this trial again every 3 years. Only after having gone through this cycle countless times can an early stage of the death spell be considered complete. If one wishes to continue cultivating it, the chance of death is even higher. According to some calculations, the chances of completely mastering the death spell are basically 0. Although this technique is very powerful, it is simply too vicious. Only a few demonic cultivators were willing to try to learn it. After listening to Li Muan describe the death spell with her trembling voice, Wang Lin's expression slightly changed and he remained silent. This silence caused Li Muan to become even more scared, and her heart pounded violently. After traveling in the Sea of Devils for a while, Wang Lin had finally entered the sea part of the area. The fog was much thicker now and the EN energy was a lot stronger. Staring at the ground below him, Wang Lin muttered a bit before taking a few steps back. He jumped around until he found a mountain peak. He stood on a rock that was protruding from the mountain as he took a flying sword out of his bag of holding, and then pointed at the mountain. The flying sword flew toward the mountain and began carving. Sounds of metal scraping rock entered Wang Lin's ears. He couldn't help but frown as the mountain was too tough and the flying sword was very weak. He let out a snort and then slapped his bag of holding again. This time more than 30 flying swords came out. His G-realm divine sense entered each sword and the swords rained down upon the mountain. This way, the progress immediately sped up, and a cave appeared on the side of the mountain. Li Muan had gotten used to Wang Lin during their travels. Since this guy could complete the death spell, then controlling 30 flying swords wasn't really anything surprising. She knew that the amount of flying swords one could control was dependent on a cultivator's divine sense. Time slowly passed and a cave with 4 rooms was slowly carved out. Thus, a simple cultivation cave was formed. Wang Lin took out spirit stones and set down various formations around the cave. After Li Muan saw the formations, she revealed a surprised expression. But after seeing the formation, the surprise disappeared and a sliver of disdain appeared. However, that sliver of disdain quickly disappeared as she hit it. However, this sliver of disdain was still caught by Wang Lin. Although he was focused on placing the formation, his divine sense had never left Li Muan. Even on the way here it was still the same. If Li Muan had made any unusual movement, Wang Lin wouldn't care that she was a woman. He would have mercilessly killed her. After Wang Lin finished placing down the spirit stones, he didn't even turn around as he coldly said, "I plan to stay in this cave for a long time. If the formation is broken, I can easily escape, but you will have to rely on yourself." With that, he turned around and looked at Li Muan. Li Muan clenched her teeth and moved up without a word. She took out black flags from her bag of holding and placed them around the cave. However, she still felt unsafe, so she placed more formations down around the cave, and even organized Wang Lin's formations to connect them all. After doing all of this, she clenched her jaw again and took out a blue crystallic beast bone. She used her flying sword to cut it into pieces and after calculating for a while, she placed one piece down. She continued to place them. When all 18 pieces of the beast bone were in place, 3 hours had passed. Li Muan's forehead was covered in sweat. She looked very tired as she said, "Including the formations you have placed, there are a total of 214 formations. However, they are only beginner formations that can only stop foundation establishment cultivators from entering. I just used the bone of a crystal beast to lay down the 9-skeleton formation. Although the formation is only at 30% power due to the lack of bones, it can still block a core formation cultivator for 1 hour. I only have this many crystal beast bones. If you want the formation to be even more stable, then we need more spirit beast bones. With that, she waved her right hand and tossed out a piece of jade. Wang Lin caught it and scanned it with his divine sense. Inside was information on how to enter the formation. After he finished reading it, he crushed the jade, then looked at Li Muwen and pointed forward. Li Muwen knew that she couldn't trust him, but there was nothing she could do, so she walked into the formation. Wang Lin left a sliver of his divine sense on her and followed behind. After safely passing through the layers of formations and entering the cave, Li Muwen took out another small flag. She gently waved the flag and all the formations activated, releasing a thick fog. From the distance, one couldn't see anything at all, and even if they were to take a closer look, they would only see the mountain. Inside the cave, Wang Lin examined Li Muwen, which caused her face to become even more pale. She took a few steps back and whispered, "Senior apprentice brother, should I refine the distance heaven pill for you now?" Wang Lin shook his head and said, "I don't dare to eat the pills you refine." Li Muwen's eyes immediately became red as she silently lowered her head. After a long time she raised her head, revealing a crying face and whispered, "Senior apprentice brother has saved my life. Just tell me what I need to do for you to believe me." The current her was very beautiful and alluring. Wang Lin wasn't affected by Li Muwen's beauty at all. His expression was still calm as he said, "I don't like forcing people, so I won't demand too much from you. All I need you to do is refine enough pills for me to reach the core formation stage. Once I have reached the core formation stage, I'll escort you out of the Sea of Devils. But during this period of time, I'll need you to hand over your soul essence blood to ensure nothing goes wrong with the pills during this period of time." Li Muwen pondered for a bit, then nodded. She pointed her finger at her brow and forced out her soul essence blood. Then she sent the drop to Wang Lin. After Wang Lin received the soul essence blood, he threw out several bags of holding and said, "All of the materials are here. See what kind of pills you can refine." Li Muwen checked the bags with her divine sense and immediately exclaimed, This is desolate wood root, and there is yellow core grass. There is burning golden root and heaven spirit grass." The more she looked through the bags, the more shocked she was. A large majority of the materials were for refining pills, and some had long been extinct in Hofan. Only disciples that came back from the foreign battleground every 100 years would bring back some. Wang Lin rubbed his chin and threw out more than 10 bags of holding. These were his recent spoils. After removing all the treasures and spirit stones, all that was left were materials he didn't know about, so it was perfect to have Li Muwen identify them. After checking all of the bags of holding, all of Li Muwen's grief from before disappeared and her face was now glowing. Her face was filled with excitement as she raised her head and asked, "Senior apprentice brother, I can freely use all these materials?" Wang Lin nodded. "I only want pills. As for the process, you can do whatever you wish." Li Muwen smiled at Wang Lin for the first time. Her smile was very sweet as she said with confidence, "Senior apprentice brother can rest assured. I have calculated that I can make 300 yellow spirit pills that can help increase cultivation, 50 poison avoiding pills, and various other pills with various effects. Once I have finished, I'll hand them to Senior apprentice brother. Senior apprentice brother, among the materials you have, the most valuable one is this demon blood vine." With that, she took out a very ordinary-looking redwood strip. This redwood strip is one of the ingredients for making the distance heaven pill, and one of the most important. I have only seen this demon blood vine in ancient records. With this, I have confidence in refining one distant heaven pill. However, the effect will be a bit weaker as I need to find replacements for the other materials. Wang Lin's expression remained dull as he calmly said, "I won't ask much about matters relating to refining pills." He pondered a bit and said, "I plan on making a trip outside. At least 3 days and at most half a month. Watch out for yourself." With that, he was ready to leave. Li Muwen hesitated for a bit, then quickly said, "Senior apprentice brother, when you go out, can you find me a pill furnace? I'm fine with the materials, and the pill furnace I carry is fine for normal pills. However, if I were to use my current pill furnace, the success rate of the distance heaven pill would only be 50%. Normally, the completion of the distant heaven pill uses the sex heaven fusing furnace. Wang Lin slightly frowned. He looked at Li Muwen, then left without a word. Li Muwen secretly sighed. She originally didn't want to lie, but she was afraid that if she had told the truth earlier, he would have left her. However, now that they had reached this stage and she had even turned over her soul essence blood, she decided to bring up the matter of the distance heaven pill's success rate. If anything were to happen in the future, he might kill her in a moment of rage. After leaving the cave, Wang Lin checked his direction and looked toward where Zhao was. His eyes became cold as he muttered, "Donghua, I'm about to reach the core formation stage. Once I reach the nascent soul stage, I'll kill my way back to Zhao and uproot your entire clan. Donghua, you better not die early. Live and wait for my return." The coldness in his eyes slowly disappeared. He took a step, activated the Earth Escape technique, and quickly charged into the distance. The reason he was going out was to find more spirit beast bones. According to Li Muwen, only by adding more spirit beast bones could the 9 skeleton formation be at max power. Wang Lin knew that he was in a rush to reach the core formation stage, and in a place as dangerous as the Sea of Devils, he needed a relatively safe place to ensure nothing went wrong. Another reason was that he needed the skulls of spirit beasts to make the reaction furnace for the refining technique of the War God Shrine. With both the formations and the reaction furnace, spirit beast bones were now a necessity for Wang Lin. According to the description given in the map Jade, there were spirit beasts within the fog and spirit beasts bones at the bottom of the sea. However, many of those spirit beast bones had already been dug up by others, so even after walking for a long time, Wang Lin still hadn't found any. Also, the fog was very thick at the bottom of the sea, so his eyes were useless and he could only see with his divine sense. As he moved, his expression suddenly changed and he took a step back. Then a flying sword, flying in a wavy pattern, flashed by where Wang Lin was. Wang Lin was at the peak of late-stage foundation establishment, the pseudo-core formation stage, so he was able to completely see through this 40-something-year-old man who was only at the early stage of foundation establishment. This person's face was dark purple and his breathing was very rough. It was clear that he had been hit with a powerful poison, causing him to not be able to fully control his spiritual energy. The moment that flying sword passed by, another ray of light chased closely behind it. Wang Lin's face became very strange as the person chasing the early-stage foundation establishment cultivator was a young man at the peak of the 15th layer of chi condensation. This person's face was snow white, had slender eyes, and had a hint of evil on his face. The evil-looking young man was holding a black beast bone. As he leisurely chased after the middle-aged man, he kept on blowing on the bone. Every time he blew on it, black smoke would come out. The moment the black smoke appeared, it would quickly catch up to the foundation establishment cultivator and enter his body. Senior apprentice brother, run faster. Your junior apprentice brother wants to see how long you can last with those 16 deadly poisons inside your body. The young man blew at the black bone again and continued in a creepy voice. Senior apprentice brother, junior apprentice brother here has spent a very long time preparing these 16 different deadly poisons for you. How else would I dare to act against you with your foundation establishment cultivation? Senior apprentice brother, you won't be able to run away. The middle-aged man clenched his teeth and remained silent as his flying sword crookedly flew up the mountain. Senior apprentice brother, you are already very old. How about you accept death and let me devour you with the foundation stealing technique? The evil-looking youth said very slowly as he closed in on the middle-aged man. Wang Lin was interested in the beast bone in the young man's man. He moved forward and silently followed behind them. After the middle-aged man heard what the young man said, he didn't even turn his head as he cursed with a raspy voice. Sang Muya, you bastard. If it wasn't for me pleading for you back then, how could Master have accepted you as a disciple? You dare to do such a vicious thing to your fellow disciples? Are you not afraid of Master finding out? The evil youth let out a hysterical laugh and said, Master? If Master didn't agree to this, how would I dare to openly ambush you like this? The middle-aged man's body trembled as he coughed out a mouthful of black blood. His body weakened and he fell off his flying sword. The evil youth let out a cold snort and stopped 3 feet away from the body on his flying sword. He stabbed the corpse several times with this flying sword to make sure it was dead before grabbing it to leave. However, he suddenly stopped as he stared at a dark figure in the fog. Cold sweat covered his forehead. When he was chasing his senior apprentice brother, he had his divine sense spread out and didn't notice anything. However, this person now appeared silently before him, meaning that this person's cultivation level was far above his own. He threw the body on the ground, then immediately clasped his hands and bowed. The evil expression disappeared from his face and was replaced with a simple and honest expression as he said, "Junior is the fighting evil sect's disciple Sang Muya. What has Senior stopped Junior for? Junior will do his best to help Senior." Wang Lin slowly walked out of the fog and coldly glanced at the youth. The youth felt like his simple and honest expression was seen through at a glance by Wang Lin, so he suddenly felt terrified. He had only felt like this when he was faced by his master, but his master was at the peak of late-stage foundation establishment and had foot in the core formation stage. Could this young man, who didn't look much older than him, be at the pseudo-core formation stage already? The youth's heart trembled and his expression became even more respectful. "Bring your beast bone here." Wang Lin's voice was cold and void of any emotion. The more Wang Lin acted like this, the more Sang Muya panicked in his heart. He had grown up in the Sea of Devils and had heard of all kinds of demonic techniques. Although his cultivation level wasn't high, he had managed to cultivate a pair of demonic knowledge eyes. He knew that those powerful demonic cultivators were cold and ruthless, and although he had seen many demonic cultivators with those eyes, most were only an imitation. But this senior before him seemed to be cold and ruthless from the soul, especially that pair of eyes that caused even his heart to feel cold. He quickly threw out the beast bone that was in his hand as he didn't dare to have any thoughts of resisting. Wang Lin flew at a low altitude near the bottom of the sea with a flag in his hand. This was a soul flag with over 100 souls sealed inside, including the soul of Sang Muya from earlier. The soul flag used to belong to Sang Muya, and he didn't expect it to be his own grave. After talking with Sang Muya, Wang Lin learned that everything within a 1 million kilometer radius was considered the outer rim of the Sea of Devils. There were countless large and small sects in this area, and the Fighting Evil sect was one of them. The highest level cultivator of the sect was the sect head, Lu San, who was Sang Muya's ancestor. He was at the peak of mid-stage core formation and was somewhat famous in this area. The outer rim of the Sea of Devils was very lacking in resources with very few spirit veins. There were very few nascent soul cultivators here as many weren't willing to live in this area. Most of them lived in the middle section of the Sea of Devils. In addition to all of this, Wang Lin also learned that there weren't any spirit beast bones in the outer rim of the Sea of Devils. Those powerful spirit beasts all lived in the middle section of the, and even if one were to wander out here, it was not something the demonic cultivators that lived here could kill. But Wang Lin still managed to obtain some useful information. Within the outer rim of the Sea of Devils, there were 3 danger zones. One of the 3 danger zones, the Corpse Valley, had many beast bones. If nearby sects needed such materials, they would go there. The strange thing was that every so often, new corpses of newly dead spirit beasts would appear in the Corpse Valley. Some of these spirit beasts were very powerful when they were alive. There was actually no explanation for how they appeared there, much less how they died in the Corpse Valley. Although the Corpse Valley was mysterious, as long as one doesn't enter the central part of the valley, then generally nothing dangerous happens. As for the bone Sang Muya was using to deal with his senior apprentice brother, it came from the Corpse Valley. It was made from the bones of a mysterious crow beast. After studying it for a long time, Wang Lin found that this poison only worked on foundation establishment cultivators. The effect was drastically weaker against more powerful cultivators. Wang Lin's current destination was the Corpse Valley. He quickly flew toward the direction Sang Muya pointed to. What he saw when he arrived outside the Corpse Valley were countless mountain ranges. There were tall and low mountains, and where the mountain ranges met, there were large and small valleys. This was the Corpse Valley. The fog here was very thin and didn't affect visibility at all. However, as Wang Lin entered, he felt an energy that was very different in terms of quality to the energy outside. Wang Lin immediately formed a seal and began to chant. Then slivers of light gathered before him. Eventually, they formed a ball of white light, but right after it appeared, It began to change colors until it finally settled and became blue. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. This was the technique to determine the type of EN energy in the area. Based on the color of the ball, it would tell him which of the 4 EN energies it was. There were 4 colors: purple, blue, silver, and red, which represented heaven, earth, mysterious, and death EN. Since the light was blue, then this place contained the very rare earth EN energy. Wang Lin took a deep breath and pointed forward. The ball of light immediately flew forward. Wang Lin slowly followed behind the ball of light and observed its color as he searched for beast bones. Wang Lin's divine sense found several cultivators inside the corpse valley, but they were all focused on looking for beast bones. Even if they were to meet, all they would do was nod at each other as they passed by. Wang Lin pondered a little. There wasn't only one corpse valley but countless ones of varying sizes. There were fewer cultivators deep inside the valley, meaning there was a higher chance of finding beast bones there. After passing through the 9 valleys, there were much more remains of beasts. Some of them were terrifyingly large as they took up a majority of the valley. Wang Lin was standing on top of a giant beast corpse, but after examining it for a while, he gave up on the idea of taking it away. Although this corpse was large, there wasn't spiritual energy in the bones, meaning this wasn't a spirit beast, just had a large body. As he got closer and closer to the center of the corpse valley, the deeper the color of the ball of light became. After he passed the 9th valley, he no longer saw any cultivators, and the amount of corpses increased. Wang Lin paused in the 9th valley for a while. He was very careful and had his divine sense spread out. For some reason, after he arrived at the 9th valley, he felt that it was different from the previous 8. He couldn't clearly say what was different, but he felt as if countless pairs of eyes were gathered on him the moment he entered. Wang Lin sneered in his heart as he swept the surroundings with his G-realm divine sense. The eyes on him immediately disappeared and the valley became silent again. Wang Lin pondered for a bit, then casually collected beast bones before moving to the 10th valley. When he arrived at the 13th valley, the ball of light split into 2. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He knew that this meant that the quality of EN energy had broken past rank 10 normal quality and entered rank 1 good quality. Waves of EN were coming from the 14th valley. Wang Lin felt his body stiffen. Wang Lin looked around and let out a sigh. In truth, this was the best place for him to go into closed-door cultivation. However, although this place looked calm for it to be considered one of the 3 danger zones, it must have its dangers. Wang Lin didn't dare to go into closed-door cultivation for long no matter how good the conditions were. Before he fully understands this place, he won't stay here for long unless he absolutely has to. He hesitated for a bit. He had already collected a few beast bones. Although their quality wasn't very high, they should at least be able to increase the power of the 9 skeleton formation a bit. But he was a bit unwilling to walk away now. From his current position, he could see just how big the 14th valley was. This 14th valley was clearly different from the 13 before it. Its size was almost the same as the previous 13 combined. In addition to all of this, what was most strange about the 14th valley was that there were no corpses in sight. The entire ground was covered in shining blue frost that looked very mysterious. From a distance, Wang Lin could see that the 14th valley wasn't the center of the corpse valley. It could only be considered the halfway point. Wang Lin shook his head and decided to head back. Just as he was about to leave, a roar came from the distance and a giant dragon over 1,000 feet long appeared from the fog. Wang Lin's expression changed as he took a few steps back and entered the ground. His divine sense spread out and was locked onto the giant dragon. The dragon's body was very large. As it moved its body, it created huge gusts of wind. In one jump, it crossed 13 valleys and entered the 14th valley. As the giant dragon passed over Wang Lin, a large amount of fresh blood fell from the sky. Wang Lin looked up and saw that there was a giant wound on the dragon's stomach. The wound covered half of the dragon's body length. Wang Lin looked at the direction the dragon came from and saw a trail of blood. It seemed the dragon was bleeding non-stop on the way here. The dragon stopped above the 14th valley and seemed indifferent about the amount of blood he was shedding as he let out one last roar. The moment this roar came out, the air around the dragon rippled and spread out like waves in the ocean. The bones in the other valleys were turned to dust and were pushed outward by the air waves. Wang Lin could feel that 3 inches of the ground were peeled off. He was extremely shocked. This dragon was probably even stronger than a nascent soul cultivator. This roar lasted for 1 hour before the dragon's eyes dimmed. It used the last of its strength to smash into the blue ice on the ground and dug into it. At this moment, Wang Lin jumped out of the ground and charged toward the dragon without any hesitation. In the blink of an eye, he had entered the 14th valley. As he floated in the air, he grabbed the tail of the sinking dragon and pulled with all his might. He only heard crackling sounds as the dragon's body was pulled out by him. His heart pounded as he carried the heavy body and flew out of the corpse valley. The dragon was too heavy. Even when using all the spiritual energy in his body, he could just barely carry it. He could hear his own bones compressing under the pressure. But when he thought about obtaining the body of a dragon that had just died, Wang Lin completely ignored the pain. After shakily flying out of the corpse valley, Wang Lin could see the cultivators that were collecting bones on the outer rim. All of them had activated defensive treasures as they looked at him. They were stunned. These cultivators were used to these kinds of things happening. So the moment the dragon appeared, they all scattered, opened up their defensive treasures, and found a sturdy place to hide. Even so, there were still people who had their bodies shattered by the roar. In order to survive, not only would they need a certain level of cultivation but also a quick mind. These people were here year-round as they relied on selling the bones from the corpse valley for a living. Because they were here year-round, they did sometimes see spirit beasts dying inside the valley, but this was the first time they had seen someone carry out the body of a spirit beast that had just died. They have never even heard of it, let alone seen it. However, this person had not only done it, but was carrying a complete dragon corpse. A complete body that hadn't rotted. At this moment, most of the cultivators had lost their reasoning and revealed looks of greed. Wang Lin could feel countless eyes looking at him. He let out a cold snort as he stepped on the ground and went underground using the earth escape technique with the entire dragon. The moment he sunk down, his G-realm divine sense shot out. All of the cultivators here were below the core formation stage, so every single one of them died. The dragon's body was simply too large. Even though he was constantly drinking spirit liquid, he couldn't move very fast. He could only ever so slowly move toward the cave as he was carrying the dragon. It took Wang Lin 10 days to slowly move from the corpse valley back to the cave. After he appeared outside the cave, he carefully checked his surroundings. When he was sure that nothing was wrong, he came out and dragged the dragon out with him. The ground shook and alerted Li Muwen. She opened the formation and poked her head out after Wang Lin called her. However, the moment she poked her head out, her eyes were drawn to the 1,000-foot-long dragon. She was dumbfounded for a long time. Wang Lin dragged the dragon into the formation and said to Li Muwen, "Would the bones of this dragon be enough for the formation?" Li Muwen nodded in a daze as her mind was a complete mess. She had seen records of this type of dragon. They were powerful enough to kill late-stage nascent soul cultivators, and their entire bodies could be considered treasures. Inside the head of the dragon was a dragon pill. It was a natural pill that only needed a bit of refinement to become a real pill that will increase cultivation. The dragon's skin was top-quality material for making armor, and the dragon's bones and tendons were also rare materials. The most precious material of all though was the marrow. The quality of the marrow depended on the age of the dragon. The older the dragon, the less marrow. Once it reaches a certain age, it will become a dragon pill. The dragon pill was something even ancient cultivators would dream of. It would allow one to obtain a dragon's body and allow them to switch back and forth. Also, from that point on, they will never reach a bottleneck when cultivating. However, for a dragon to form a dragon pill, it would need to be alive for 9,990,000 years. This was why no exact records of the dragon pill existed. Its effects were still only rumors and legends. After passing the dragon to Li Muwen, he no longer bothered with it and went on his way. He had obtained everything he needed besides a furnace in this trip, but he learned that there was a place called the Treasure Refining Pavilion where he could buy one. The Treasure Refining sect had a lot of shops all over the Sea of Devils. The closest one was in North Dipper City, 40,000 kilometers away. However, things like a pill furnace usually cost a lot, and after hearing Sang Muya say that the head of the Fighting Evil sect had spent almost all of the sect's spirit stones for one pill furnace, he gave up on the idea of going to buy one. He decided to put the matter of the furnace aside for now. Because they had the dragon's bones, the 9 skeleton formation will be strong enough to provide them decent protection. Wang Lin was going to go into closed-door training, aiming for the core formation stage. Wang Lin sat down in one of the stone rooms and sealed it with a large rock. Then he took out 30 flying swords and pointed at the ground. The flying swords immediately flew into the ground and started digging a tunnel to the bottom of the mountain. Wang Lin's eyes became serious as he shot out some spiritual energy that became a ball of fire. The color of the fire gradually became light blue. Wang Lin slightly frowned, but his face immediately lightened up. Rank 1 Common Earthine. Although it couldn't compare to the Corpse Valley, it was more than enough for common cold cores. His body moved and jumped into the bottom of the pit. It reached rank 3 Common Earthine. This was clearly the limit, so he put out the ball of fire and began to cultivate. Wang Lin had already learned the underworld ascension method once, so he was able to quickly pick it up again. Time slowly passed and 3 days later, Wang Lin opened his eyes. His eyes revealed a contemplating expression before he took out the heaven-defying bead and gathered the spirit liquid. Time quickly passed by. Aside from cultivating, Wang Lin only gathered the spirit liquid from the heaven-defying bead every day. Once he had gathered enough dew, he would spend part of the day cultivating inside the heaven-defying bead with the spirit liquid. As a result, his progress was very rapid. It only took him 1 month to form 2 cold cores. He only needed to form the last one to attempt to reach the core formation stage. This last cold core would take longer to make. After all, he had only formed 2 cold cores last time. However, he was at the peak of late-stage foundation establishment, so at least it wouldn't take him years of cultivation for it to finally form. Wang Lin was confident that he could form his 3rd cold core within 3 months. As a result, he wasn't in a rush at all. Aside from cultivating and gathering spirit liquid, he found time every day to nurture some devils. Wang Lin had tried many times, but he couldn't imprint his divine sense onto the devil, so he had to work around it by slowly nurturing them. Speaking of the devil, he was of great use for Wang Lin. He slowly took out souls from the soul flag and fed them to the devil. All of the souls inside the soul flag were cultivators from the Sea of Devils, and a majority of them were disciples of the Fighting Evil sect. According to Sang Muya, all of these souls belonged to people who fought with him for the attention of their master. After they were killed by him, he sealed their souls inside. Time slowly passed, and by the time the devil had devoured most of the souls in the soul flag, a sliver of Wang Lin's divine sense developed inside the devil. The devil itself hadn't realized that this sliver of Wang Lin's divine sense had developed within itself as it thought about ways to escape. 3 months had passed since he had gone into closed-door cultivation. The prototype for his 3rd cold core had already formed. In these 3 months he had gone outside several times. The room Li Muwen was in was filled with materials. She even managed to get some soil from somewhere and planted some spirit herbs. There was also a formation of low and medium quality spirit stones laid out around the spirit herbs to ensure they had enough spiritual energy to grow. A small pill furnace was placed in the center of the room with a pile of failed pills beside it. Li Muwen had started refining pills when Wang Lin had gone into closed-door cultivation. Aside from the failures on the ground, there were also jades scattered on the floor. Whenever Li Muwen gets stuck or had some inspiration, she would immediately search through the jades. Of the 4 rooms inside the cave, 1 was used for Wang Lin's cultivation, 1 was for alchemy, 1 was for growing plants, and the last one had been renovated into a shower room by Li Muwen. The Sea of Devils was filled with fog, so the air was very humid. The inside the cave was no exception. Clothes will get wet very quick and stick to your body. Li Muwen was a girl, and adding on the sticky feeling the wet clothes gave her, she really couldn't stand it anymore. So she put in a lot of effort to make this shower room. Wang Lin didn't care about the shower room at all because all he had to do was cycle his spiritual energy, and all of the EN energy would be sucked into his cold core. The 9 skeleton formation's power had greatly increased with the dragon's bones. However, Li Muwen said that it should be called the 9 dragon bone formation instead of the 9 skeleton formation. The moment the formation was turned on, it could trap a core formation cultivator for months, or block a nascent soul cultivator for a few days. However, Li Muwen regretted that they couldn't catch the dragon while it was alive, because if they had infused the dragon's soul into the formation, it would be even stronger. Not only would it be able to defend, it would also be able to attack. Any core formation cultivator would die instantly, and a nascent soul cultivator would be forced away in a sorry state. Unfortunately, the soul of a dragon was too hard to obtain, so she could only dream about it. As for the dragon, Li Muan took out the dragon's pill and stored it until she obtains a better pill furnace. As for the skin, Li Muan spent a month removing it from the dragon and stored it for later. In addition to all of this, there were the dragon's tendons. This was the third mysterious part of the dragon aside from the dragon's pill and marrow. If a treasure refiner was here, they would be able to refine the tendons into weapons that could change their size at will and split into countless branches. The last part was a small bottle of bone marrow. It was so precious that Li Muan was scared of using it to refine pills. She handed these things over to Wang Lin and painfully withdrew her gaze. Wang Lin kept the dragon's marrow and veins and gave everything else to Li Muan. With her tender hands, she made 2 inner armors from the dragon's hide. After Wang Lin put one on, he looked at the other one that was clearly made for a woman and threw it at Li Muan. She let out a smile as she silently put it away in her bag of holding. There was still a lot of dragon's hide left after the armor was made, so Wang Lin put it all away to exchange for other resources in the future. The entire dragon became various treasures. Another month passed and Wang Lin finally formed his third cold core. The Yin energy cycled through the cold core at his head, chest and dantian. Wang Lin opened his eyes and revealed an excited look. He closed his eyes and decided to do it all in one go, so he fused the 3 cold cores into one. Situnan had explained in detail before about the process of fusing the 3 cold cores into one. The fusion was divided into the initial step and completion. If he could reach the initial step, then he would truly be half a step into the core formation stage. If he were to take the distant heaven pill at the same moment he completes the fusion, then he would have an 80% chance of reaching the core formation stage. He didn't let Li Muan complete the distant heaven pill because it required a better pill furnace, and there was only one incomplete pill. He had to ensure the highest success rate of the pill being completed. At the same time, he made the backup plan of using the demonic bloodroot to make a fake distant heaven pill. Before, he thought buying a pill furnace would be too expensive, but now that he had the dragon's hide, he could try to get one. If it was still not enough, then he would do whatever was necessary to get a pill furnace. He took a deep breath and began to attempt fusing his cold cores. There were cold cores in his head, chest, and dantian. He had to break the balance between the 3 so the cold core at the head would sync and fuse with the one in the chest. If that succeeded, then that was the initial fusion. The next step would be for that fused cold core to sync and fuse with the one in the dantian. The moment the 3 cold cores fuse, there is a chance for a real core to form. Wang Lin quietly sat inside this small stone room filled with Yin energy. His eyes were cold, his divine sense was in his body, and his focus was on the cold core in his head. The first step for him was to make this cold core sync. Wang Lin knew that it would be difficult to fuse the 3 cores before, but after experiencing it, he felt like difficult was an understatement. It was more like unimaginably difficult to fuse the 3 cold cores. Wang Lin had already tried to sync the first cold core for more than a month, and he never stopped trying the whole time. There seemed to be some mysterious force blocking him. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break through. The requirements to cultivate the underworld ascension method were to break the ancestral point, Qi, and dantian 3 times each, with each time being harder than the last. The first time could be said to be difficult, the second time was very difficult, and the third time was extremely difficult. However, what Wang Lin was attempting to do right now was really making his ancestral point break a 4th time, so one could only imagine the difficulty. After attempting to break through many times, Wang Lin changed tactics and decided to slowly grind the barrier down. As time went on, that force that was blocking him weakened greatly. However, the pain caused when grinding it was not something a normal person could imagine. Every time he grinded it, his body would shake and his forehead would be covered in sweat. His clothes had been dry ever since he had started this process. Turning 3 cores into one was not something that could be achieved without great determination. However, determination was not something Wang Lin lacked. Even back in the Hongyu sect, his determination had left 2 streaks of blood on the road up the mountain. If it wasn't for his bad talent, he would have definitely been the focus of the Hongyu sect's nurture and care. However, all of this was pointless now with the destruction of the Hongyu sect. Wang Lin's determination was unimaginable. After enduring 3 months of this pain, the ancestral point finally broke once more. The fist-sized cold core slowly sank down toward his chi-si. As it sunk, slivers of energy from the cold core entered his body. Every time the cold core sunk, more and more of these threads of energy appeared until the core was finally right above the chi-si. Wang Lin took a deep breath and started grinding the barrier in front of the chi-si without any hesitation. Another 3 months had passed before the barrier finally broke and opened. At the same time, the two cold cores collided with each other. Wang Lin heard a boom as a terrifying energy surged through his body. Wang Lin's face immediately became pale. After his throat moved a bit, he coughed out a mouthful of blood. The moment the blood came out, it froze and hit the wall, causing the wall to be covered in blood-colored ice crystals. After coughing out the blood, he quickly took out 8 medium-quality spirit stones, all of which he crushed and turned to dust. The dust quickly circled around him and formed a strange symbol. The symbol faintly glowed before disappearing. Then a black flying sword appeared and circled Wang Lin once before stopping before him. The devil's figure slowly appeared from the sword. The devil first looked at Wang Lin and began to struggle on what to do. Just at this moment, the divine sense implanted in the devil activated and it lost every urge to attack Wang Lin, then started to obediently guard him. After finishing all of this, Wang Lin's body fell to the ground. He only had enough time to place a formation before he passed out. Speaking of this formation, Wang Lin had prepared several simple formations to use during emergency situations. The devil guarded the cave and secretly glanced at Wang Lin a few times. He began to struggle again and thought, should I attack him? Well, he doesn't seem to be faking it. It's hard to say. This guy is just too sly. Should I fight with him? But if I can't defeat him? The devil shivered and threw this idea out of his mind. After one day, the idea he had thrown out of his mind came back again and he began to struggle. Should I attack him? This is the perfect time. If I miss this chance now, then I might never have another. No, this Wang Lin is too cunning. How could he not have some sort of defense against me? He was passing out, yet he still let me out. This doesn't make any sense. The devil shook his head and looked viciously at Wang Lin. I'm not going to fall for it. You can continue to pretend. The idea was once again thrown aside. Another day passed. The devil looked at Wang Lin and became tempted again. Forget it, let's fight. I don't think this guy is faking it. I want to fight. His eyes turned red and he jumped at Wang Lin. The defensive formation had no effect, so he managed to touch him. But shortly after, the devil let out a miserable scream as green gas came out of his body, and he seemed like he was about to disappear. He quickly backed up while miserably crying. I knew this guy was cunning. Why else would he let me out without a care? Damn it, when did he leave that divine sense inside me? How am I going to live from now on? The devil slumped to the ground and began wailing. After experiencing this, the devil obediently stayed in a corner. He stared at the wall with eyes filled with anger. On the third day, Wang Lin woke up and let out a bitter smile. He underestimated the difficulty of the fusion. The destructive force created by the fusion was the key part of the process. He couldn't let this energy escape or the fusion would fail, but if he were to keep it in his body wouldn't be able to withstand it. Wang Lin's expression was very dark and unsettling. In truth, his body couldn't handle this level of yin energy, which confused him greatly. How did the senior that practiced the underworld ascension method fuse the 3 cold cores? Forget about others, how did Situnan succeed in cultivating the underworld ascension method? Wang Lin thought very hard but couldn't come up with an answer. This was one point Situnan had never brought up. How could I make my body be able to withstand the yin energy? Wang Lin muttered to himself for a long time before letting out a sigh. Then his gaze landed on the devil in the corner. After Wang Lin woke up, the devil had constantly been taking peeks at him. Now that Wang Lin looked at him, his body quivered and he quickly said, I have been guarding you this whole time and was always vigilant. Wang Lin grabbed the devil and threw him into the flying sword before leaving the stone room. Wang Lin looked into Li Muan's room and saw her slumped over a table, sleeping soundly. Her silky hair was tied up in a ponytail. Part of the ponytail was on the side of her face and the rest was behind her ear. Her face was slightly red and had a glow like sunlight reflecting off snow. The purple dress she had on made her look like a painting and would cause anyone's heart to beat faster. At this moment, there were slivers of white smoke escaping from the pill furnace next to her, making her look like a fairy in a painting. The decorations Li Muan had added to her room, like the green vines she had picked up somewhere, made this scene look even more like a painting. A faint aroma of herbs came out of her room. When Wang Lin breathed it in, his mind immediately became clearer. He looked for a long time before withdrawing his gaze and looked at the other stone room. His room. Half of the room was filled with herbs and the other half was filled with other materials. The dragon's skull was among those materials. The dragon's corpse was too large, especially the bones. It would be too wasteful to use it all on the formation, so Wang Lin came out once to tell Li Muan to save some of it. After giving out that order, he began fusing the 3 cold cores. Wang Lin began to ponder. There was a bit of purple on this bone that make it look more like metal than bone. He thought that this must have been formed due to the dragon's unique bodily structure. Just as Wang Lin was observing, his heart suddenly moved and he turned around. Li Muan stood up with a yawn and opened the door. She was surprised to see him. All of her drowsiness went away. In these past few days, Li Muan's mentality had been slowly changing. At the start, she was always on guard against Wang Lin because she was afraid he might suddenly attack her. After all, people who practiced the death spell often harvested ENGSUB energy. But then she realized that this Wang Lin was almost always in closed-door training. Before, she thought that her brother was diligent in cultivation, but after seeing Wang Lin, she felt that he was truly diligent. In her view, Wang Lin was already at the peak of the foundation establishment stage and only one step away from the core formation stage. However, how could the core formation stage be that easy to reach? In Li Muan's memory, the youngest person to reach the foundation establishment stage was 17 years old, but that person took 30 years from there before they reached the core formation stage. This person was Ho Fan's ancestor, the first person to reach the nascent soul stage, and the person who raised Ho Fan from a rank 2 to a rank 3 cultivation country. But looking at Wang Lin's appearance, she thought that he was only in his 20s. It would be impossible for him to form his core in a short period of time. When Wang Lin told her that he will send her home once he reaches the core formation stage, she secretly sighed. She believed that it would take him a few decades to successfully reach the core formation stage. She felt a hint of disdain toward Wang Lin. If he wanted to keep her, he could have just said so instead of using this trick. Li Muan pondered for a bit, then asked, Your cultivation has reached a bottleneck? Her soul blood essence was in his hands, so if he were to ever have some crazy demand, she wouldn't know how to respond. This question had been in her mind for a long time. Today, when she saw his frown, she couldn't help but remember that the death spell required the user to absorb ENGSUB energy from females to cultivate. Based on her calculations, it has been months since he had last killed anyone or touched any woman. Wang Lin didn't know what Li Muan's was thinking. He looked at her and nodded. Li Muan's heart skipped a beat. She took a few steps back and her face became pale. She struggled a bit as she bit her lower lip and said, I only promised to help you refine pills. But even if I die, I won't agree. Wang Lin was caught off guard by Li Muan. He turned his gaze toward the dragon skull and asked, Why is the skull of the dragon this color? She bit her lower lip and softly said, The dragon's body is filled with poison, so it is not surprising that the bone is this color. Filled with poison? Wang Lin was shocked as he carefully examined the skull. Before a dragon dies, its body gets filled with deadly poison. Once it dies, the poison can change its body to become a type of treasure. The most poisonous part of the dragon is its marrow, and the most valuable part is also its marrow. Li Muan's expression gradually became cold and her voice calm. Wang Lin silently stared at the dragon's skull and began to ponder. His expression unsettled. He muttered, A body filled with poison. Why isn't the dragon affected by the poison when it is alive? An idea flashed across his mind. The idea came quick, but it left just as quick. Wang Lin only got a hint before becoming confused again. Li Muan coldly looked at Wang Lin. Seeing that his frown had become tighter, she couldn't help but say, The dragon's body is made of poison from its flesh, bone, innards, and even its saliva, so it naturally won't be affected. An idea suddenly flashed across Wang Lin's mind. The idea became clearer and clearer, and his frown gradually loosened up until he finally let out a laugh and put the dragon's skull inside his bag of holding. Since my body couldn't withstand the EN energy, then let my body completely become one with the EN energy. As a result, I will be able to withstand it. Wang Lin took a deep breath, looked at Li Muwen and walked toward her. Li Muwen's face became every paler. She backed up to the wall, her body trembling, and just as she was about to kill herself with a bitter smile on her face, Wang Lin said, "When I reach the core formation stage, I'll send you back to the Lu He sect." With that, he turned around, rushed out of the cave, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Li Muwen was completely stunned. Her mind was in chaos as various thoughts flooded her mind. Finally, she sat down with her back against the wall. Wang Lin activated his Earth Escape technique to its peak as he charged toward the Corpse Valley. After gaining insight from Li Muwen's words, he was now 100% confident in making the 3 cold cores fuse. His speed was very fast. He arrived at the Corpse Valley in 3 days. He charged directly in and flew from the 1st valley to the 13th valley. Outside of the 14th valley, he took a deep breath and stepped in. In the 14th valley, the ground was covered in a layer of frost. As Wang Lin walked on it, slivers of EN energy entered his feet. Wang Lin hesitated a bit before slowly sinking into the ground with the Earth Escape technique. As he sank, the EN energy became even more powerful. After he sank about 100 meters, he had to stop as the powerful Earth EN energy had frozen his body. This was his limit. If he were to go any deeper, then even his soul would freeze. As for how deep the 14th valley was and what secrets might be within it, Wang Lin didn't care. He carefully controlled his heartbeat and moved his body into the lotus position. "I'm not leaving this valley until the 3 cores fuse into one." Wang Lin muttered this in his heart and closed his eyes. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye 3 years had passed. The disaster at Hofun was finally resolved. The rank 4 cultivation country had sent 3 soul formation cultivators. They had spent 19 days taming all of the fire beasts. They refined them all together into a medium-quality spirit beast, then returned to their country. The quality of spirit beasts have very wide gaps. They are categorized into abnormal, spirit, desolate, and celestial beasts. Each stage has high, medium, and low quality. The fire spirit that was absorbed by the heaven-defying bead was half a step into becoming a desolate beast. According to this scale, it would be at the peak stage of a high-quality spirit beast. All of its descendants were low-quality spirit beasts. This clearly shows the difference between high, medium, and low quality. If it wasn't for the fact that the fire spirit was in a weakened state, it wouldn't have been so easily devoured. It has to be said that a high-quality spirit beast is the equivalent of a peak late-stage soul formation cultivator. A medium-quality spirit beast is the same as a peak late-stage nascent soul cultivator, and an early-stage spirit beast is the same as a peak late-stage core formation cultivator. The dragon that died was a medium-quality spirit beast. Although the fire beasts were gone, the fire spiritual energy in the country made it impossible to cultivate. They could only wait for the fire spiritual energy to slowly dissipate with time. The battle with Xianwu continued, but battles between hundreds of people were very rare now. Most of the battles now were between a few dozen people. After taking a bout of Xianwu, the cultivators of Hofen really didn't have any more power to push further, so everything stabilized. As for the battle between the 2 countries, it turned from killing each other to a training ground for the disciples of the 2 countries. This was a great insult to all of the disciples that had died during the start of the war. As for Wang Lin, after he sunk 100 meters into the ground of the 14th valley, he sat there like an old monk. His heartbeat slowed down even more as an endless amounting energy entered his body and spread to his flesh and bones. Gradually, more and more extremely EN energy gathered in his body, so his flesh was now blue. It was as if it was about to turn to ice. In the past 6 months, his heart had beaten 9,837,543 times, and he had sunken down to 180 meters. Another 6 months passed. The EN energy had invaded all of his internal organs now. His flesh and blood started to freeze and his hands and feet had become ice crystals. It felt as if any amount of force would shatter them. In these 6 months, His heart had only beaten 487,659 times, and he had sunken down to 730 meters. Another 6 months passed. The ice crystals had extended to his arms and legs. If one looked at it closely, they would see his bones inside the ice. His torso was also starting to turn into ice. His heart had beaten a total of 3,865 times, and his body had sunken down to 1460 meters. 6 more months passed. His entire body, besides his head, had become an ice crystal and his heart had stopped beating. His body had sunken down to 3,672 meters. 2 more years passed. Halfway through the 3rd year, his head turned into an ice crystal as well. There was no more signs of life from Wang Lin. He had finally reached the underworld state required in the underworld ascension cultivation method. His body had sunken to 7,979 meters and appeared in a dark blue space. His surroundings were filled with bones of beasts. For some reason, all of the flesh of these beasts had disappeared, leaving behind this sea of corpses. All of the bones here had been turned into blue ice crystals. Wang Lin sat inside the sea of bones and spent 1 month to restore his heartbeat, 2 months to recover his divine sense, and 3 months to feel the 3 cold cores. Afterward, the cold cores from his ancestral point in Qi Sea collided, creating a surge of powerful Yin energy. However, compared to the Yin energy currently in Wang Lin's body, it felt a bit underwhelming. He easily fused the 2 cold cores together and condensed them into one. Shortly after, the fused cold core sank and arrived at the Dantian. The barrier at the Dantian lasted only half an hour before it collapsed. The fused cold core sank and collided with the cold core in the Dantian. Suddenly, more than 10 times the Yin energy from last time surged forth. This Yin energy was very dense, but it was still a bit short of the Yin energy in Wang Lin's body. Slowly, the 3 cold cores fused into one. However, its color wasn't golden but a very full gray. Wang Lin didn't know that the underworld ascension cultivation method had undergone some changes due to the heaven-defying bead and the G realm. It could be said that the difficulty he faced had never happened before. The reason the underworld ascension cultivation method was said to be the fastest way to reach the core formation stage was because it formed a prototype cold core first. It would then use spiritual energy to turn it into a golden core. He had now completed more than half of it, so he only needed more spiritual energy to make that final push. However, the core formation stage wasn't that easy to achieve. There was a certain chance of failure. If he were to fail, the prototype core would shatter and he would have to start again. The 3 cores fused into one to form the prototype core. The next step will be for it to fuse with the body. If his body doesn't reject it, Wang Lin will begin to nurture it with his spiritual energy and divine sense. After a certain point, it will turn into a golden core. When that happens, Wang Lin will have stepped into the core formation stage. The final push with spiritual energy would require the help of the distant heaven pill. As Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes, cracks started appearing below his head. His body let out crackling sounds and soon, the cracks covered his body. As his body moved, the cracks became even larger. Wang Lin slowly stood and violently shook his body. The ice fragments quickly fell as if there was a powerful wind blowing them away. The clothes on his body also turned to dust and disappeared. Only the dragon hide inner armor still remained tattered on his body. Wang Lin silently stood in place and closed his eyes. After a long time he opened them. A blue light shined from his eyes. Although he was only half a step into the core formation stage in terms of cultivation, his underworld ascension cultivation method had reached completion. A mass of blue flames came out of his prototype core and flowed through his body before appearing in his hand. At this moment, 3 inches above his hand, there was a silently burning mass of blue flame. Instead of releasing heat, the flame emitted cold. This flame was the essence of the underworld ascension cultivation method. The underworld flame. The moment the underworld flame appeared, the blue ice around him immediately started to emit a white gas. It was as if it was going to melt. Wang Lin waved his hand and the blue flame disappeared. The white gas slowly dissipated and a dent was revealed in the ice. Wang Lin examined the power of the flame before looking around and putting on another set of clothes. With his eyes locked onto the bones, he began to think. After a while, he sat down in the lotus position and took out the dragon's skull. Staring at the skull, Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He decided to go to Nando City to trade for a pill furnace, so Li Muwen could complete the distant heaven pill. Although 3 years had passed in the blink of an eye, he knew through the soul blood essence that Li Muwen didn't meet any danger. However, after seeing the countless frozen beast bones, he hesitated. The War God Shine's refining technique required a reaction furnace. After the first failure, had he never gotten his hands on more skulls of spirit beasts. He told Li Muwen to save the dragon's skull, because he wanted to use it to make the reaction furnace. However, due to him trying to fuse his 3 cold cores, plus the fact that he wasn't sure he would succeed, he hadn't tried it yet. After all, should he fail, it would take a lot of effort to find another one. But now that he found that he was surrounded by bones, his urge to make a reaction furnace surfaced again. He recalled the steps to make the reaction furnace from his memory before taking out the jade to double-check. He put his hands together. Then as he reopened them, threads of spiritual energy connected his 2 hands. Wang Lin's expression became serious as he threw his hands up. The threads of spiritual energy flew up as well. Wang Lin didn't even blink as he joined his hands again and repeated this process over and over again. More and more threads of spiritual energy gathered before him until they were like a tense bundle of glowing silk. After doing all of this, Wang Lin let out a sigh. The first step to making the reaction furnace was complete. Now he had to see if the skull could withstand the fusion of the threads. He pointed at the dragon's skull and the threads touched it. The threads slowly fused with the skull, and the purple of the skull gradually lessened. But before long, cracks started to appear where the threads were touching. Then the skull shattered into pieces, leaving only the threads of spiritual energy hanging in the air. Wang Lin let out a dark sigh, but then he quickly revealed an unwilling expression. He stood up, grabbed the threads, jumped to another corpse and pressed them down. This corpse was about 500 or 600 meters long and was gray. Its head was very big, almost the same as the size as the dragon's skull. The moment the thread reached the corpse, it went right through it. Wang Lin was startled. He tried again and the threads once again just went through the bones. Wang Lin stared at the beast and his eyes lit up. The bones were covered in his blue ice, as if they were frozen. Wang Lin reached out and squeezed the bone. There was a series of crackling sounds, but the bones didn't break. Wang Lin pondered a bit, then took out the underworld flame. The moment the flame got near the bone, waves of white gas floated out of the beast bone. The closer the flame got, the more white gas appeared, and the blue ice melted at a visible rate. Eventually, all of the blue ice melted, revealing the gray bone within. Wang Lin didn't hesitate. He pressed the threads of spiritual energy down. This time, the threads directly warped around the skull. But after half an hour, the skull changed colors 3 times before shattering. There were now a lot less threads. It seemed they had lost a lot of spiritual energy. Wang Lin frowned. The difficulty of making this reaction furnace was far higher than he threw. It seemed the reason there were so few people who had managed to learn the refining technique was due to this reaction furnace. It already took a large amount of luck to even obtain the skull of a spirit beast, and for a reaction furnace you want the skull of a spirit beast that had just died. And the higher quality the spirit beast, the better. If you use the skull of a spirit beast that has been dead for a while, the success rate drastically lowers. Of course, if one could get the skull of a desolate beast, then even if the beast had been dead for a long time, the success rate would increase several-fold. As a result, the difficulty became exponentially more difficult. If he had tried right as the dragon died, then his chance would have been higher. However, back then, he didn't have any time to think about it as all of his focus was on reaching the core formation stage. Wang Lin let out a soft snort as he looked at the endless sea of corpses around him. As for how much spirit beast bones there were, he didn't know. I don't believe that I can't make one reaction furnace with this many spirit beast corpses. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he closed his hand and created more threads of spiritual energy. After replenishing the threads, he grabbed them and placed them on another skull. 1 hour later, the skull shattered again. Just like this, he continued trying. Wang Lin didn't even remember how many skulls he had shattered, but he knew that he had replenished the threads more than 100 times. His eyebrows furrowed even harder. Finally, he jumped into the air and coldly looked around. He threw the threads of spiritual energy out, and they began to circle around him. His hands constantly opened and closed. Every time he did this, more threads were made. His hand moved faster and faster and the threads appeared like rain. Gradually, the amount of threads of spiritual energy increased. The number of threads of spiritual energy greatly increased, and he didn't stop as he used up all of the spiritual energy in his body. He quickly took a few gulps of spirit liquid and continued to make threads. Time slowly passed and the mass of threads became larger and larger. It was now more than 100 meters wide. Wang Lin looked at the size of this sea of corpses and thought, still not enough. Then he drank more spirit liquid and began to make more threads. Finally, when the mass of threads was more than 1,000 meters wide, he stopped. He spread out his divine sense to control all of the threads, then pressed them down. With that, blue flames appeared as well. There were thunderous rumbles as the threads pressed down and kicked up waves of ashes. The wave of ashes roared forth and all of the bones in its path were turned to ashes and joined this wave. Along with this wave there was also a mass of white gas. This sight was very breathtaking. Once all of the white gas dissipated, nothing was left. Wang Lin clenched his teeth as he drank more spirit liquid and created more threads before pressing them down again. Waves of ashes roared across the area. After the white gas dissipated, Wang Lin's eyes locked onto the corpse of a small beast all by itself in this 1,000-meter radius open area. Wang Lin revealed a happy expression and immediately flew toward the corpse. He took a closer look and found that there was nothing unusual about it. The bone was very white and looked very normal. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he pointed at the sky. He quickly grabbed the threads of spiritual energy and pressed them against the small beast's skull. The skull's color quickly changed. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. After it changed color 9 times, the skull detached from the spine and floated into the air. The threads had completely fused with the skull. After the skull changed color 9 times, it slowly morphed into a bowl shape while emitting waves of spiritual energy. Wang Lin caught it in his hand and began to examine it. The origin of the War God Shrine's refining technique was very mysterious. Rumor has it that it was found with the Heaven's Way technique by the War God Shrine's ancestor. The later generation spent a lot of time developing it into the current refining technique. The reaction furnace is a part of this and has 10 ranks of quality. The higher the rank of the reaction furnace, the better it is. It's also easy to identify the rank. When it is being made, the number of times it changes colors determines what rank it is. Rank 9. Wang Lin muttered to himself. He felt very regrettable. With this vast amount of spirit beast bones at his disposal, he still wasn't able to make a rank 10 reaction furnace. However, a rank 9 was better than none. Wang Lin took out the jade and checked it again. What the jade didn't mention was that even the nascent soul cultivators in the War God Shrine only had rank 6 reaction furnaces. As for the rest, almost all of them were rank 3 or lower. Wang Lin's reaction furnace being rank 9 had a lot to do with the corpse of that little beast. This little beast was a rare desolate beast in this sea of beast corpses. After a desolate beast dies, its bones aren't much different from a spirit beast's. Unless you are an expert on this, it is hard to tell them apart. After Wang Lin's divine sense withdrew from the jade, he began to ponder. The War God Shrine's refining technique focused on 3 key points: transfer, melt, and fusion. Wang Lin became very focused as he took out materials from his bag of holding and threw them into the reaction furnace. These were some of the materials recorded in the jade. After he got familiar with the contents of the jade, he was able to find some in his bag. Chicken bloodstone. When infused with spiritual energy, it can produce a lot of heat. Violet moon vine. A type of plant that can produce decomposition effects after being refined by the heaven star wood. Heaven star wood. A type of wood with corrosive properties. Wang Lin had all 3 of these materials in his bag. Although it was not much, it was enough for refining a treasure. Wang Lin had always been very confused about the materials he had obtained in the foreign battleground, but at least he knew a bit now. He started putting the violet moon vine inside the reaction furnace. Every time he placed a piece, he would crush it with a piece of spirit beast bone. His divine sense was focused on the inside of the reaction furnace. Gradually, the reaction furnace was filled with a thick violet paste. Staring at the reaction furnace, Wang Lin muttered as if he was waiting for something. Then his eyes lit up and he flicked a drop of his blood inside. At this moment, bubbles appeared inside the reaction furnace. Wang Lin didn't panic as he calmly sent spiritual energy into it. The jade gave a detailed description of what the reaction furnace did. The reaction furnace takes a side route in refining by using the reaction furnace as a medium to allow the refiner to directly manipulate the materials inside. Wang Lin took a deep breath. After hesitating for a bit, he took out the heaven star wood, crushed it, and sprinkled it into the reaction furnace. The violet liquid quickly started bubbling and released a pungent smell. Wang Lin quickly took out his only piece of chicken bloodstone and threw it in. After finishing all of this, his expression became even more serious as his hands quickly formed seals. The violet liquid inside the reaction furnace quickly gathered together to form a violet ball. Wang Lin pondered for a bit, then waved his hand. The ball split in half. One half floated upward while the other sank back into the reaction furnace. Under Wang Lin's control, the ball that floated up went higher and higher. Wang Lin pondered a bit before pointing at his chest and forehead. He spat out a mouthful of purple spiritual energy. Then the spiritual energy immediately entered the ball. The first step of the War God Shrine's refining technique transfer was complete. Now it was time for the second step, melt. This melting process required treasures to use as materials. Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and 35 flying swords came out. Wang Lin pointed at one of the flying swords and stabbed the ball with it. Slowly, the tip of the sword melted until the entire sword melted into the ball. After that, the remaining 34 flying swords melted into the ball under Wang Lin's control. Finally, the ball began to emit a rainbow-colored light that was very blinding. The entire process, from placing the violet moon vine into the reaction furnace to now, had taken 2 hours. In these 2 hours, Wang Lin focused all of his attention on refining. Not only did he not relax, but he became even more focused as he took out the black flying sword from his bag of holding. It could be said that this flying sword had been through a lot with him. From when he got it after killing Zhang Hu's master to being chased by Teng Li, and finally when he died in the battle outside the Juming Valley. Then he was saved by Situ Nan's nascent soul, and the sword's body was destroyed. However, due to its connection with Wang Lin, the sword spirit was able to survive by staying within Wang Lin's soul. Afterward, Wang Lin tried to find multiple new bodies for it, but none of them worked. This black sword was the latest one, and after using teleportation a few times it was already a mess. Wang Lin grabbed the sword and gently rubbed it. The sword hummed loudly. Shortly after, an illusionary image of the sword flew out. The devil also flew out and stood to the side. He stared blankly at his surroundings. No one knew what he was thinking about. Wang Lin took a deep breath and grabbed the ball. He clenched his teeth, sent out an order, and the black flying sword flew right into the ball. Wang Lin's divine sense immediately spread out and surrounded the ball. The last step of the War God Shrine's refining technique, fusion, started now. Time slowly passed. The ball slowly elongated and gradually solidified. After an unknown amount of time had passed, there was a loud cry. Then a crystal-clear flying sword appeared before Wang Lin. The moment this flying sword appeared, a vortex of spiritual energy appeared next to Wang Lin. After circling Wang Lin a few times, the vortex entered the flying sword. Wang Lin looked at the flying sword for a long time before opening his mouth. The flying sword flew inside. The devil was startled. He forced a smile, rubbed his hands and said, Since you swallowed the sword, where am I going to live?" Wang Lin raised his head and looked at the devil. He waved his hand and the dragon's tendon flew out from his bag of holding. He reached inside the reaction furnace and scooped out the half of the ball that had gone back into the reaction furnace. His eyes lit up and the dragon's tendon immediately flew into the ball. After he refined it for a while, the ball became smaller and smaller. Finally, it turned back into the dragon's tendon, but now it was a golden color. Wang Lin looked at the devil and he obediently entered it. He waved his right hand and the dragon's tendon came down. After observing it for a while, he put it away. He raised his head and looked at the icy blue wall above him. The blue underworld flame appeared in his hand and he flew up. He charged through over 1,000 meters of dirt and rock like he was breaking through paper. His speed was too fast, and adding on the destructive power of the underworld flame, it caused the corpse valley to tremble. This caused the expressions of all the cultivators inside the corpse valley to change. They all quickly left the area as the trembling on the ground intensified. A few key cultivators saw that a loud roar came from the 14th valley as a black shadow charged into the sky and disappeared into the fog. The cultivators stared confusedly at the 14th valley for a long time. After all of this happened, various rumors began to spread. Finally, the rumor became that it was a corpse that had been sleeping inside the corpse valley for tens of thousands of years. Then it suddenly woke up and charged out from underworld. The thing that flew up was the cultivating corpse. After Wang Lin flew out, he didn't stop and continued flying north. According to the information he had received from Sangmuya, Nando City was about 300,000 kilometers north of the Corpse Valley. Wang Lin knew that he had already spent a lot of time refining, so he didn't want to waste any more time. He only had one goal right now, and that was to get a pill furnace to complete the distant heaven pill. After 2 days and nights of flying, a city came into Wang Lin's view. This city was very large, and at first glance, he couldn't even see where it ended. This was Nando City, one of the 999 cities in the Sea of Devils. The city was named Nando because that was the city's lord's name. He was a nascent soul cultivator with many experts under him. It could be said that he was the ruler of this area. Basically, if someone owned a city, they must have at least a certain status, and the city's lords were always well known. Under the city's lord, there were various sects, but none of them could compare to the city's lord. Luckily, Nando City's lord disappeared 500 years ago, so this area had been going out of control like a headless dragon. This was also what allowed large sects like the Fighting Evil sect to form. Nando City became a lordless city in the Sea of Devils, and was managed by a few of the large sections. However, Nando City was at the edge of the Sea of Devils, so resources were scarce, and the lack of spirit veins made it so nascent soul cultivators would rarely come out here. This resulted in a situation where within millions of miles of Nando City, there were no nascent soul cultivators but a lot of core formation cultivators. Someone once said that if a nascent soul cultivator were to appear here, that person would become Nando City's new lord. It was not like there hadn't been any nascent soul cultivators that wanted to rule the city, but none of them could stand the lack of spiritual energy in barren land, so they all eventually gave up. At some point, nascent soul cultivators stopped coming. After all, there were almost 1,000 cities in the Sea of Devils, so there was no reason to come to a crappy city like Nando. The current Nando City was managed by the Punishing Heaven sect, the Soul Extinguishing sect, and the One Heaven Path sect. Although the Fighting Evil sect had the power to also be a ruler, thanks to the power of the three sects, they couldn't get a foothold in the city. After all, splitting the ownership of the city 3 ways was very different from splitting it 4 ways. Also, no one liked watching the Fighting Evil sect wiping out other sects as they grew in power, so the 3 sects agreed on this matter. After paying 10 low-quality spirit stones and obtaining the token for entering the city, Wang Lin quickly walked through the streets toward the treasure refining pavilion in the east. The treasure refining pavilion had 3 floors. The items in each floor were several times more expensive than the ones in the last. Currently, there were about 7 or 8 cultivators bargaining with the workers inside. Before Wang Lin entered, he took out a black cloak to cover his head. After entering, he looked around the first floor and found that it mostly contained flying swords. All of the swords were high quality and sealed in boxes with talismans on each end to prevent the sword chi from escaping. In addition to all of these swords, there was a crystal pillar in the center of the room with 3 flying swords floating in the middle with the tips of the swords pointing down. The 3 flying swords dimmed and brightened. Sometimes they would even shine brightly. As Wang Lin looked at the 3 swords in the center, a worker walked up. He was about 20 years old and looked very bright. He carefully examined Wang Lin. It was pretty normal for customers to hide their faces because many cultivators didn't want to be recognized. As for Wang Lin's cultivation level, he had the treasure refining pavilion's own special technique to check. The more he checked, the more excited he became, because Wang Lin's cultivation level kept changing between core formation and peak late-stage foundation establishment. Although this worker was surprised, he didn't show it on his face. He respectfully asked, "Does Senior have his eyes on these flying swords?" Wang Lin withdrew his gaze and looked at the worker. He was instantly able to see that the worker was at 7th or 8th layer of chi condensation and calmly asked, "Does the treasure refining pavilion sell pill furnaces?" The worker nodded and smiled. Senior, I'm afraid that you will only find pill furnaces in our treasure refining pavilion, as they are not things normal people can buy. If Senior is interested, please follow me to the second floor. Wang Lin calmly walked toward the stairs. The worker quickly followed to lead the way. Just before he stepped on the ladder, he turned and looked at a cultivator that was currently bargaining with a worker. He pondered for a moment before stepping onto the stairs. After arriving at the second floor, the worker quickly went to talk to a middle-aged man in a room to the right before quickly returning downstairs. The middle-aged man didn't have any hair and his eyes occasionally shone. He got up, clasped his hands and said, "What quality of pill furnace does fellow cultivator want?" Wang Lin took a look at the middle-aged man and found that this middle-aged man's cultivation level was at the peak of foundation establishment just like him. He was surprised by this. The first floor had a qi condensation cultivator, and the second floor had a foundation establishment cultivator. Does this mean that there is a core formation cultivator in charge of the third floor? Wang Lin's expression was relaxed as he asked, "Could you take out a few for me to see?" The middle-aged man laughed and pointed at the chair to the side. "Fellow cultivator, please sit and I'll go grab them for you." With that, he poured a cup of tea before walking next to a wall and hitting it. Ripples appeared on the wall. Then it turned more and more illusionary. Then 3 beautiful girls walked out, each holding a white jade tray. On each tray was a large red box. Each box was about 2 square feet. These 3 wooden boxes were the exact same size, but the patterns engraved on them were different. There were also seals placed on every box. The 3 beautiful girls walked up to Wang Lin and gazed at him. The middle-aged man picked up one of the wooden boxes, placed it on the table and said, "Fellow cultivator, this is forged from the green star rock and mysterious fog crystal from the depths of the Sea of Devils. It took 49 months of refining to create this mysterious green pill furnace. This is a rank 3 pill furnace." With that, he tapped the box, causing it to open, revealing a fist-sized pill furnace. Wang Lin's expression was calm. He remembered that Li Muan told him that the pill furnace she carried around was only a rank 2 one, and that she would need a rank 4 or better pill furnace to ensure there weren't any problems with the distant heaven pill. After taking one look, Wang Lin withdrew his gaze. He didn't say a word. The middle-aged man faintly smiled. He waved his arms and the box returned to the jade tray. He passed over the second girl and directly grabbed the box from the third girl's tray. He gently placed it on the table and smiled. "I believe fellow cultivator must be refining a top-quality pill. This pill furnace is refined from the cores of 99 low-quality spirit beasts from the Sea of Devils. It's called the 100 Beast Pill Furnace. If you use this pill furnace to refine a pill, there is a high chance of the pill absorbing some of the beast core's aura. This will increase the quality of the pill." With that, he tapped the wooden box. The box slowly opened, revealing a blood-red pill furnace. If one looked closely at it, they would see the face of 99 spirit beasts. These spirit beasts looked as if they were real. They even gave off slivers of spiritual energy. This furnace was also in a sealed state. If it was unsealed, the spiritual energy inside it would surge forth. Even Wang Lin was tempted by this 100 Beast Pill furnace, but his expression didn't change at all. The middle-aged man touched the wooden box and said, "Fellow cultivator must know that low-quality spirit beasts are equal to core formation cultivators. Our sect spent a lot of time and effort to make this pill furnace. This pill furnace has reached rank 5. Wang Lin withdrew his gaze. After pondering for a bit, he asked, "What price?" The middle-aged man smiled and answered, "The standard price is 100,000 high-quality spirit stones, or you can take out a treasure that is equal to that price." After hearing this price, Wang Lin's heart sank, even though he was prepared for it. No wonder the Fighting Evil sect head used up almost all the money of the sect to buy just one. The smile remained on the middle-aged man's face as he poured himself a cup of tea, took a sip and said, "This 100 Beast Pill furnace is indeed expensive. How about fellow cultivator considers the mysterious green pill furnace from before instead? Although it is still 100,000 spirit stones, it is mid-quality spirit stones, which is only 10,000 high-quality spirit stones." Wang Lin looked at him and slapped his bag of holding. A piece of dragon hide appeared on the table. "Dragon's hide," the middle-aged man said in surprised tone. He picked it up and carefully examined it, then said, "This is the hide of a medium-quality dragon spirit beast. How much more of this do you have?" Wang Lin's expression remained calm. He didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "How much is needed to exchange for the 100-beast pill furnace?" The middle-aged man lowered his head and calculated for a bit before raising it. He looked at Wang Lin and said, "If the dragon is at least 1,000 meters long, then the entire hide would be enough to exchange for it." Without a word, Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and the dragon's hide formed a small mountain before the middle-aged man. Wang Lin didn't even look at the middle-aged man as he grabbed the pill furnace and walked down the stairs. The middle-aged man breathed rapidly and looked at the dragon's hide. He spread out his divine sense and found that although it was missing a small piece, it was not much different from a complete dragon. The complete hide of a medium-quality dragon spirit beast. It has to be said that a medium-quality spirit beast is the same as a nascent soul cultivator. Even in the inner parts of the Sea of Devils, it could be considered a powerhouse. Although the middle-aged man had seen a lot, he had only seen the complete hides of low-quality spirit beasts. As for the hides of medium-quality spirit beasts, he had only seen pieces. This was the first time he had seen the complete hide of a medium-quality spirit beast. When he raised his head, Wang Lin had already put the box inside his bag of holding and quickly went downstairs. Wang Lin knew well that it was not wise to display his wealth to others. This was why he decided to cover himself. However, he still didn't feel safe. Even though he didn't understand the value of the dragon hide as much as the middle-aged man, he knew that it was a rare material. If the middle-aged man were to start thinking about the other parts of the dragon and got greedy, it would cause trouble. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he didn't want to trade the dragon's hide, but the price of the pill furnace was simply too high. Aside from the dragon's hide, the only other thing he had was the spirit liquid. In comparison, if he were to take out something heaven-defying like the spirit liquid, it would cause even more problems. After considering the choices, he decided to trade the dragon's hide and quickly leave. He left the treasure refining pavilion and coldly looked across the street. When he went upstairs, he had already noticed someone spying on him, so he left a trace of his divine sense on that person. When he came out, he noticed that that person was in the inn across the street. There were quite a few people in the inn, including 3 core formation cultivators next to the person Wang Lin had left a trace of his divine sense in. Wang Lin pondered a bit and decided to not detonate the divine sense. After making a few turns, he took a step and activated his earth escape technique. However, there was a flash of white light and he didn't enter the ground. The entire city was covered in a formation that prevented his earth escape technique from working. Wang Lin's brow furrowed as he jumped into the air and flew toward the city gates. He only flew for a bit before a black-clothed cultivator arrived at the spot where Wang Lin attempted to use the earth escape technique. He looked at the direction Wang Lin flew in and licked his lips. His eyes were filled with greed. This cultivator was one of the people that was bargaining on the first floor when Wang Lin entered. This person was named Wei San. He was one of the disciples of the Fighting Evil sect who had come to buy stuff in Nando. When he saw Wang Lin enter the second floor, he was tempted and casually took a few glances before watching from the inn across the street. He even sent out a voice transmission jade to fellow Fighting Evil sect disciples who were also in town buying stuff. After a long time, he saw Wang Lin leave and calculated that Wang Lin must have gotten some treasures. Wei San couldn't help but get some evil ideas, but he couldn't see through Wang Lin's cultivation level. Based on his guesses, Wang Lin must have been at the core formation stage. This made him want to back down, but when his fellow disciples arrived with some elders, he was very happy and explained everything in detail. Besides him, more than 10 people appeared, all at various cultivation levels. Most of them were at the foundation establishment stage, but 3 of them were covered in black fog. These 3 were the 3 cultivators that caused Wang Lin to worry. Wei San turned around and respectfully said, "Elders, I can't believe that you 3 are in Nando as well. I'm sure that that person must have some sort of treasure on him." A husky voice filled with anger said, "Wei San, you exaggerated too much. I thought it was really a core formation cultivator." "Humph, how could a mere pseudo-core formation cultivator have any treasure? What a waste of time." Another person covered in black fog said, "You damn it! A hand reached out to slap Wei San. Wei San's face immediately became pale and he knelt onto the ground. He chattered. "Disciple, everything Disciple said is true. Aside from me guessing his cultivation level wrongly, Disciple." The fear caused his words to become incoherent. None of the other fighting evil sect disciples revealed any expressions. Some even felt happy watching his misery. Seeing this made Wei San's heart become even colder. He saw the hand come closer, then suddenly had an idea and shouted, I remember now." He asked the worker at the treasure refining pavilion if there is any rank 5 or higher pill furnace. In truth, Wei San didn't clearly hear those words, but in this stressful situation, he began to make stuff up. As he spoke, even he himself began to believe that maybe that person really was there to buy a pill furnace. The hand suddenly stopped. A husky voice said, "Pill furnace? Wei San, do you know the consequences of lying to me?" Wei San clenched his teeth and said, "Disciple is willing to bet his life on it." He couldn't help but bitterly smile in his heart. If he didn't promise now, then he would die instantly, so he might as well risk it. He was going to die anyway, but if he was right, then he would get to keep his life. The third elder that still hadn't said a word finally said, "It doesn't matter if he is telling the truth or not. Let us just go and see for ourselves." The moment those words came out, the three of them no longer hesitated and followed after Wang Lin. The other disciples quickly followed them. Wei San wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and secretly cursed but still followed them. The three elders of the fighting evil sect came to Nando City to have a very important meeting with the elders of the three other sects, so orders were given to not obstruct them. Now that the meeting was over, no one stopped them, even though there was a large group of fighting evil sect members together. As for Wang Lin, someone would stop him to check his token every once in a while. This made him move very slowly, and adding on the fact that he noticed people following him, he decided to just charge through everything. Soon, he arrived at the gate and charged out of the city. Shortly after, the fighting evil sect members flew by the gate as well. After they left, disciples of the three major sects of Nando City appeared at the gate. They were being led by a few core formation cultivators. They had received orders to kick out the members of the fighting evil sect if they started fighting inside the city, but if they leave the city, don't stop them or help them. After Wang Lin left Nando City, he quickly went underground using the earth escape technique and quickly escaped. One of the three core formation cultivators was surprised. He waved his hand and an ancient mirror appeared in his grasp. He spat out a mouthful of spiritual energy and guided it into the ancient mirror. The ancient mirror shined and a rainbow-colored light shot out from it. The light pointed at the ground toward where Wang Lin went and quickly went forward. The three of them sneered and followed the light. The disciples of the fighting evil sect were all very excited. Hunting prey with the elders of the sect made them very excited. Wang Lin slightly frowned and let out a snort as the divine sense left in Wei San detonated. Wei San, who was with the group of fighting evil sect members, suddenly let out a miserable scream, coughed out blood, and fell off his sword. His fellow disciples' expressions immediately changed. Wang Lin's speed didn't slow down. He spread out his divine sense and focused on one person. Once again, another disciple of the fighting evil sect let out a miserable scream and fell down. As a result, the disciples of the fighting evil sect all stopped, not daring to continue chasing. Only the three core formation cultivators didn't care. They continued to chase after Wang Lin. One of the cultivators waved his hand and a giant black stamp appeared. It circled him once, then he let out a cold smile and waved his hand. The black stamp smashed down. The moment the stamp smashed into the ground, Wang Lin quickly turned and dodged it. The cultivator's smile became even colder. He controlled the stamp to continue smashing into the ground. A figure then came out from under the ground. After coldly looking at the three of them, Wang Lin quickly flew away. The cultivator with the ancient mirror shouted, "Hand over the treasure you got at the treasure refining pavilion, or die." Just as he said those words, a bright light appeared before his eyes as a flying sword stabbed toward him. He felt terrified as he forced his body to move left a bit. He felt pain as the flying sword went through his chest and came out the other side. He couldn't help but cough out a mouthful of blood. What kind of flying sword is this? His face was pale and filled with lingering fear. If he hadn't reacted fast enough there, he would have died. Wang Lin secretly sighed and waved his hand. The crystal sword reappeared in his hand. The other core formation cultivators were shocked. They quickly took out a few defensive formations before finally staring at Wang Lin. Scram! Wang Lin's eyes were cold. After saying that one word, he continued to fly forward. The 3 core formation cultivators looked at each other, then at the flying sword around Wang Lin. This powerful of a flying sword was very rare. Greed appeared in the 3's eyes and they continued to chase Wang Lin. The wounded cultivator took out several defensive treasures before finally relaxing a bit. Then he took out pills to help himself heal. Finally, he crushed some of the pills and smeared them on the wound. Then he hesitated a bit and took out a jade. He placed it on his forehead and threw it out. In a few breaths of time, the jade disappeared. Wang Lin spread out his divine sense and found that the 3 were still chasing him. He couldn't help but sneer. The 3 of them must be wanting to kill him to steal his treasure. For Wang Lin, being chased by 3 core formation cultivators wasn't much. If it was only one, he could fight. However, there were 3 of them. Even though they were all at the early stage of core formation, he couldn't underestimate them when they were together. However, once he succeeds in forming his core, killing the 3 of them would be as easy as crushing ants. Under the pursuit of the 3 core formation cultivators, Wang Lin ran for a whole day. During this time, the 3 used various treasures, causing Wang Lin to slow down. After the first sneak attack with the crystal sword, the 3 of them started to be on guard, so future attacks weren't as effective. Wang Lin's gaze became colder and colder. His divine sense locked onto the 3 of them and the G realm red lightning shot out. The 3 core formation cultivators saw a flash of red light before feeling like hammers had hit their heads. Blood came out of their mouths and noses, and after stumbling a bit, the 3 of them revealed terror they had never shown before. The already wounded cultivator coughed out another mouthful of blood. His eyes were red and filled with pain. If it wasn't for someone next to him grabbing him, he would have fallen off his flying sword. He took a deep breath, calmed down his divine sense, then said to the other 2, "He is no ordinary foundation establishment cultivator. He must be someone who is only an inch away from the core formation stage. We must kill him. If we let him succeed in forming his core, then with his technique, the 3 of us will surely die. I have already informed the sect head. I believe he will send backup soon." Wang Lin's brow furrowed. Normally, the G realm would have no effect on core formation cultivators, but it was affected by his current cultivation level. With the completion of the Underworld Ascension cultivation method and the formation of the prototype core, he was able to wound core formation cultivators but not kill them. Although the injuries seemed really heavy, the core formation cultivators would only need to rest for a bit to recover. If there was only one person, then using all his power along with help from the devil he would win, but there were 3 people, so he could only run right now. Wang Lin secretly sighed as he quickly flew forward. 8 hours later, when the day had darkened, he had used his G realm several times, but it could only slow them down. He spread out his divine sense, then suddenly stopped. He turned to look at the enemies that had chased him for 2 days and 1 night. The 3 of them were also very tired, but they couldn't stop chasing. If they were to let Wang Lin get away and reach the core formation stage, the 3 of them would die for sure. Suddenly seeing Wang Lin stop, the 3 of them were very confused. Just at this moment, Wang Lin raised his hand into the air, as if he was going to fight the heavens. His gaze became even colder and his hair flowed in the wind. The crystal flying sword released a cold aura below his feet. Soon, a mass of blue flames appeared in his right hand. The moment the fire appeared, the air surrounding the area immediately became colder. This blue flame was Wang Lin's other ace besides his G realm. Since he had already used G realm, he didn't want to use this blue flame. In the 14th Valley, he found out that this blue flame was not reusable. Every time he uses it, there would be less left. However, since the 3 wouldn't stop chasing him, he had no choice but to use it. The moment the blue flame appeared, the 3 core formation cultivators' faces greatly changed. Before they could do anything, Wang Lin waved his hand and the blue flame slowly flew toward them. Although it looked very slow, it was very fast. The harsh wind froze and smashed toward the 3 of them. The 3 of them didn't hesitate to split up. However, the blue flame speed quickly increased several-fold and landed on the core formation cultivator that had been injured multiple times. In the blink of an eye, his body released a blue light and disappeared. He didn't even have time to scream. The blue flame weakened a bit and quickly went after the next target. However, just at this moment, a thunderous roar came from the distance. Wang Lin spotted 7 or 8 rays of light quickly flew toward this direction. Wang Lin's expression changed. He reached out with his right hand and recovered the blue flame before escaping. This time, he used 120% of his spiritual energy and ran for his life. As he escaped, he checked the weakened blue flame. This blue flame came from his prototype core. The more he uses it, the weaker it will become. He didn't want to use it too much before reaching the core formation stage because he believed that it getting weaker would affect his chance of breaking through. Although it was powerful, it was like something without a root. Every time it was used, it would shrink a little. Back in the 14th Valley, he didn't really use it. He relied on its ambient temperature to melt the ice. But when used to kill an enemy, it was very different. It wouldn't be too bad if it could simply kill an enemy without much resistance. But if he were to start fighting against the enemy's treasures, the flame would get used several more times than normal. Also, there were 3 people. The reason that last attack worked so well was because they were all scared like little birds after seeing the techniques Wang Lin threw at them along the way. This was proven when the other 2 had plenty of time to attack him but didn't. This was also why he didn't use it before now. After all, he hadn't reached the core formation stage yet, so he didn't want anything to go wrong. It was best to only use this blue flame when absolutely necessary. If that wasn't the case with Wang Lin's personality, he would have used it at the start and killed the enemies before letting it get to this stage. Wang Lin really didn't want to waste all the effort he had put into making this prototype core. If it wasn't for the fact that they had pushed Wang Lin into a desperate position, he really wouldn't have risked it. However, they never stopped chasing, so Wang Lin decided to risk breaking the prototype core to kill them. But suddenly 7 or 8 more core formation cultivators showed up, and one of them was at the mid-stage of core formation. Wang Lin was shocked. This caused him to give up on the idea of killing them. At the moment he escaped, he knew that he was walking down a path with no return. If he doesn't reach the core formation stage, the repercussions will be very bad. The 300,000-mile escape was reaching its end as the core formation cultivators carefully chased after Wang Lin. The head elder slowly said, "This old man wants to see where this junior can run to. For killing an elder of the fighting evil sect. Even if you escape to the most remote corner of the world, you are still dead." He waved his hand and a golden symbol suddenly appeared. Then he pressed forward and the golden symbol flew out. The hair on the back of Wang Lin's neck stood up, his body shivered, and he barely dodged the symbol, but shortly after more symbols appeared. Wang Lin dodged all of them. He clenched his teeth and quickly flew forward. Gradually, the cultivators behind him got closer and closer. He thought of one method. Although this method was very dangerous, if it succeeds, then all the danger would dissolve. Thinking about this, Wang Lin's eyes became cold. Then he turned around and changed directions. Soon, a mountain covered in fog appeared before Wang Lin's eyes. After seeing the mountain, Wang Lin charged into it without any hesitation. The moment he got near the fog opened up a path and a beautiful girl in purple revealed her frightened figure. However, just at this moment, a series of golden symbols charged out like lightning and landed on Wang Lin's back the moment he entered the fog. Wang Lin spat out a mouthful of blood and fell into the fog like a kite with its string broken. The girl in purple looked at the core formation cultivators with a pale face. She waved her hands and the fog hit her figure. At the same time, the 10 core formation cultivators of the fighting evil sect arrived outside the fog. One of the old men, whose head was clearly larger than everyone else's, rubbed his head and sneered. "That little girl belongs to this old man. I was just lacking a cultivation furnace." With that, he licked his lips, formed a giant hand and grabbed at the fog. However, the moment his hand touched the fog, the image of a 1,000-foot-long dragon appeared. The big-headed cultivator let out a scream and quickly backed up with a surprised look in his eyes. The other core formation cultivators also revealed looks of surprise as they stared at the fog. The head elder, Qian Kuan, coldly said, "When did a formation like this appear?" The remaining cultivators all looked at each other, but no one responded. Qian Kuan let out a snort and carefully looked at the formation, then said, "Since this formation can summon a dragon, it must not be normal. Kuan San, try using the 10,000 seal stamp." Kuan Sang was one of the 3 elders that were chasing Wang Lin at the start. Without a word, he stepped forward and waved his right hand, making a black stamp appear. It quickly grew to the size of a small mountain as Kuan Sang's eyes locked onto the fog. He moved his hand and the small mountain smashed down. The dragon formed by the fog quickly let out a roar, charged up and collided with the small mountain. A thunderous roar exploded forth and the small mountain was thrown back. Kuan Sang's face became pale. It took him a while to stabilize his breathing. The same moment the mountain was blown away, the dragon turned back into fog and disappeared. The formation returned to normal. Qian Kuan sneered. "Kuan Sang, let me use your stamp." With that, he didn't wait for Kuan Sang to agree and reached out. A powerful force pulled the small mountain towards him, but by the time it reached his hand, it had returned to its original shape. Qian Kuan swept his hand over the stamp to remove Kuan Sang's divine sense and left his own. Then he spat out a mouthful of spiritual energy. After the spiritual energy was fused with the stamp, he threw it into the air again. The stamp turned back into a small mountain, but this time it was at least twice as large as last time. The small mountain floated in the sky, covering the area with its shadow. Qian Kuan stared at the fog and waved his hand, making the small mountain smash down again. The fog formed the dragon again, which charged at the small mountain. The scene from before played out again, but the result was very different. The moment they collided, the small mountain stopped for a moment, but the dragon dissipated and the mountain continued to descend. But as it fell, 10 more dragons took shape in the fog and charged at the mountain. Qian Kuan sneered. "Fellow elders, attack!" With those words, the remaining core formation cultivators took out their treasures and began to try to break the formation by force. As for Wang Lin, after being brought into the cave, he immediately coughed out several more mouthfuls of blood. The dragon vest on his back caved inwards and released black smoke as it moved. Soon, the vest returned to normal as if was never damaged. If he didn't have this dragon vest, then he would be more than just injured. Although Qian Kuan was only a mid-stage core formation cultivator, his destructive symbol was very powerful. People who were hit by it would have all of the bones in their bodies shattered and would die. Wang Lin's face was very pale. Once he was inside the cave, he quickly took out the wooden box containing the 100-beast pill furnace. He then gave it to Li Muwen and weakly said, "This is a rank 5 pill furnace. Quickly, complete the distant heaven pill." With that, he spat out the crystal flying sword. The flying sword slowly landed on his shoulder. It was emitting a cold light. Although he had Li Muwen's soul essence blood, he didn't trust her completely. Necessary precautions still needed to be made. Li Muwen stared at the wooden box in her hand. After taking a glance, she already knew how precious this pill furnace was, so she asked, "Are they chasing you because of this?" Wang Lin closed his eyes and focused on cultivating as he casually replied, "No." Li Muwen looked at Wang Lin with a complex expression. With her cleverness, she had already guessed that the 10 cultivators were after this pill furnace. Wang Lin might not know the worth of this pill furnace, but how could she not know? A rank 5 pill furnace's price was sky high. She stared at Wang Lin. Her gaze became more gentle as she softly asked, What did you use to exchange for it? Or did you steal it?" Wang Lin frowned. He opened his eyes and coldly said, "Go refine the pill." Just at this moment, the cave violently shook as sounds of fighting came in from outside. Wang Lin took a deep breath and began to cultivate again. Li Muwen hadn't seen Wang Lin for 3 years. In those 3 years, she analyzed the time she had spent with him. Her conclusion was that he wouldn't do anything bad to her. In the past 3 years, she had been too scared to go outside. Luckily, cultivators don't need much food. Some spirit fruits and pills were enough. In the past 3 years, every time she thought of Wang Lin, she felt complicated. Someday, she might suddenly die, which would mean that Wang Lin had died outside as well. She also imagined Wang Lin suddenly reappearing inside the cave. But she never imagined that Wang Lin would return with 10 core formation cultivators chasing him. She let out a sigh, then grabbed the pill furnace and quickly returned to her room to refine the distant heaven pill. Time slowly passed. Whenever Li Muan started refining pills, she would throw out all distracting thoughts and would focus solely on refining. She still felt very nervous though. Not even when she refined for the first time before the eyes of her master was she this nervous. She kept telling herself in her heart that she must succeed, otherwise, once the formation breaks, there will be unimaginable consequences. If she could succeed, there was still a chance. At least there should be no problems in escaping. The cave shook more and more violently. Dust fell from the ceiling and walls until a layer of it formed on the floor. The sounds of fighting from outside became louder and closer. Wang Lin cultivated the entire time. Every now and then he would look outside and his gaze would turn colder. The aroma of medication floated out, and after taking a sniff, Wang Lin calmly opened his bag of holding and began to organize the stuff inside. When he took out the dragon's tendons, his eyes narrowed. This treasure wasn't very powerful. Although it could split many times to warp around a target, if it were to meet a sharp flying sword, it would be cut in half. Even a powerful fire technique could burn this dragon tendon. As he thought about it, he let out a cold smile. Once he reaches the core formation stage, there would be a use for this dragon tendon. The sounds from outside became even louder. It was as if they were right beside him. When he looked toward Li Muan's room, his heart became heavy and he let out a sigh. Li Muan bit her lower lip until it bled and her eyes were filled with tears. That incomplete distant heaven pill had failed at the moment of its completion. As an alchemist, she had failed many times, but none of them had ever felt as bad as this. This was one of those times where she absolutely couldn't fail. Li Muan looked at Wang Lin, who was cultivating outside, and her tears finally started flowing down. The current her looked very weak. After a while, she bit her teeth and took out the demonic blood vine. Since the first one failed, then she must hurry and use the demonic blood vine to make another. Time slowly passed and the cave was starting to collapse. Chunks of rock fell down from the ceiling and the fog outside had been greatly reduced. Seemed like it could collapse at any time. Wang Lin's calm expression slowly changed, revealing a hint of anxiety. Just at this moment, Li Muan rushed out of her room. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were bloodshot, and she looked extremely tired as she threw a blood-red pill at Wang Lin. There were traces of powerful spiritual energy coming from the pill that made Wang Lin excited. This is a distant heaven pill made from the demonic blood vine. Its effect isn't as good. Without a word, Wang Lin picked up the pill and looked at it. He looked back at Li Muan and threw the pill into his mouth. After the pill entered his body, he felt a fire in his dantian. Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and drank a lot of spirit liquid. Then he closed his eyes and began attempting to break into the core formation stage. The cave shook again as more rocks fell down from the ceiling. There was only a thin layer of fog left outside. Li Muan stared dumbfoundedly for a bit before taking out her flying sword. She stood in front of Wang Lin, guarding him, and knocked away any falling rocks. Qian Kuan continued to smash the small mountain down on the formation. His gaze swept past the other cultivators. He found that all of them were attacking the formation with excitement on their faces. His mouth twisted into a faint, vicious smile and said, "Big head, we can give you that girl, but once this formation breaks, you have to let us play with her first." The big-headed cultivator paused for a moment. Then he let out a bitter smile. "Head elder, since you already spoke, how could I dare to disagree?" Qian Kuan sneered. He controlled the small mountain to smash down again and said, "This brat is merely at the pseudo-core formation stage, but he has techniques that can kill a core formation cultivator. He is not simple. But today he will die for sure." With that, his eyes lit up and he thought, "I especially want that blue flame. That is definitely a rare treasure." The big-headed cultivator felt every gloomy. When he first saw that girl, he had only caught a short glimpse, but his heart itched, so he said those words. Originally, he thought that no one would challenge him, but he didn't think that the head elder, who never cared about women, would say those words. He angrily attacked with his treasure to vent his anger. The fog created by the formation had become very thin. Only one of the 10 1,000-meter-long dragons formed by the fog remained, and it was only 30 meters long at this point. Qian Kuan waved his hand. The stamp changed back to its normal shape and returned to the hands of Kuan Sang. After returning the stamp, Qian Kuan let out a roar and arrived next to the dragon. He closed his hands, and when he reopened them, an electric net appeared and covered the dragon. He let out a laugh and shouted, "Break!" The fog dragon let out a miserable scream as it disappeared. Along with it went the fog, forming the 9-skeleton formation. Although the formation was powerful, under the attack of 10 core formation cultivators, it was broken after stalling for 3 days. If Li Muwen hadn't been refining the pill and were controlling the formation instead, then this formation wouldn't have been broken like this. With the formation broken, a tattered cave was exposed to the open. The 10 fighting evil sect core formation cultivators rushed forth, but just as they arrived within 20 meters of the cave, bolts of lightning fell from the sky. Although the lightning wasn't powerful, there was a lot of it, so it looked very threatening. The hundreds of basic formations Wang Lin had placed down came into effect. However, they were only basic formations, so they were continuously broken by the angry roars of the core formation cultivators. Qian Kuan looked onward coldly, but he didn't do anything. His target was that pseudo-core formation junior. He prepared an electric net in his hand and decided to capture that junior the moment he appears. When all of the basic formations were broken, the cave no longer had any protection, so the demonic cultivators could see inside. An exquisite figure appeared at the entrance of the cave. Her clothes were plain, but she looked very elegant and refined. Her skin was white and her cheeks were red. Her appearance would make anyone's heart beat faster. Even Qian Kuan couldn't help but narrow his eyes. However, he quickly looked past her into the cave. But the cave was completely dark and he couldn't see anything. Li Muwen looked at the demonic core formation cultivators. She waved her hand and the 100-beast pill furnace appeared. She coldly asked, "Are you guys here for this?" Qian Kuan saw this and let out a smile. The person who started chasing Wang Lin in the beginning, Kuan Song, stared at the pill furnace and laughed. "I didn't think that that brat really had a pill furnace, and it is even the 100-beast pill furnace that costs 100,000 high-quality spirit stones from the treasure refining pavilion." "You're correct. Originally, our goal was this pill furnace. Little girl, hand the pill furnace over." With that, he reached out and grabbed the pill furnace from Li Muwen. Everyone here knew the value of this pill furnace, so he decided to just point it out before everyone. Kuan Song and the other elder that was chasing Wang Lin from the start clasped their hands and said, "Head elder, this pill furnace will belong to the two of us. In the future, we will definitely send out gifts to thank you all. How about it?" Qian Kuan's gaze swept past the pill furnace, then he silently nodded. The big-headed cultivator let out a devious smile as he reached out to grab Li Muwen. "Little girl, after you finish serving my fellow sect members here, you will be my personal cultivation furnace." Li Muwen's face became pale. Just as she was about to end her own life, the big-headed cultivator stopped and let out a miserable scream. He coughed out a large amount of blood, and then even more blood came out of his orifices. His body then flew back as if it had been hit by some powerful force. But before he landed, he was grabbed by another force and pulled back. His head exploded and his golden core flew past Li Muwen and entered the cave. "From this moment on, I will be the strongest person below the nascent soul stage. If there is no nascent soul cultivator hiding his cultivation level, then you can all die." A very cold voice came out from deeper inside the cave. Then a dark figure walked out and appeared before everyone. He has a head full of black hair. His expression was cold, and his eyes revealed a cruel look. It was as if he was a piece of never-melting ice. A feeling of meeting their natural predator took hold of the hearts of everyone present. This feeling came from their souls. It was as if they had met some prehistoric beast. This disturbance caused all of their souls to become so chaotic that they were on the verge of collapsing. This disturbance raged inside them like thunder, striking next to their ears. Pu Lin's soul was already damaged from the G realm attack from before, and although he suppressed it, he hadn't had time to recover. At this moment, his soul shattered and he coughed out blood before collapsing. His body twitched on the ground, and every time he twitched, blood squirted out of his orifices. Qian Kuan's heart shook. Thanks to this shock, the electric net in his hand broke. His expression was unsettled as he took a few steps back and tried to escape. The idea of stealing the blue flame was already gone without a trace. He was scared. As a mid-stage core formation cultivator in Nando City, he had never been scared before. He had even met late-stage core formation cultivators before. They were messengers from the inner parts of the Sea of Devils that would come every year to take materials. Although he couldn't beat them, he had never felt scared of them. This was the first time since he had reached the core formation stage and the last time where he was scared. As a result, he decided to escape without hesitation. Normally, he would never be the first to run. He would wait for others to escape first, then choose a safe direction to escape toward. But right now, he had a feeling that if he didn't immediately escape, the only result would be his death. As for the rest of them, after seeing each other's faces change, Pu Lin mysteriously dying, and head elder Qian Kuan running without any hesitation, they all activated all of the spirit energy in their bodies and escaped in all directions. They were afraid that if they were a tad bit slow, they would die. The moment Li Muwen saw this figure, she let out a sigh of relief and her body went soft. She had to lean against the wall. A cold hand went under her armpit, which surprised her. Then she immediately found herself take off from the ground. A familiar smell entered her nose and made her relax. Seeing the fog before her, she was about to speak when she heard Wang Lin's indifferent voice say, "Don't move. I'm taking you to kill people." Wang Lin held Li Muwen and paused in the air for a moment. He took out the dragon tendon, which was now like a whip, and swung it. One end wrapped around the headless corpse of the big-headed cultivator, and then the end split and grabbed Pu Lin's corpse. Wang Lin's right hand held the dragon tendon as his divine sense spread out and located the ones that ran away. He let out a sneer as he flew northeast, and as he flew, the dragon tendon flew behind him with the bodies of the two core formation cultivators. Kuan Seng's heart was in panic. The moment he saw Wang Lin, he felt like there was a large hand stirring up his soul, and all it would have to do was use a little force to destroy it. Pu Lin's mysterious death frightened him the most. There were no words that could describe the regret he felt in his heart right now. For a pill furnace, 2 out of the 3 of them had already died. Just thinking about this caused him to feel rattled as he quickly took out some pills and threw them in his mouth. After his spiritual energy was refilled, he bit his tongue and spat out some blood. His hand quickly formed seals, which he sent into the blood. As he made the seals, his body quickly withered, but his speed increased several-fold. He left an afterimage as his body charged out hundreds of meters. Wang Lin sneered as he flew through the sky like a meteor. When he saw Kuan Sang, a cold light flashed across his eyes. He opened his mouth and a crystal-colored light flew out. In almost an instant, the crystal light flew hundreds of meters. As Kuan Sang ran, he suddenly felt a pain in his chest. When he lowered his head, he saw a crystal light penetrating his chest. His core flew out from his chest and slowly flew backwards. He opened his mouth, but he couldn't make a sound. His vision grew darker and darker as he fell from the sky. Even until the moment of his death, he couldn't understand how all of it had changed so quickly. The prey suddenly became the predator. As his body fell, a thin golden light extended from the dragon tendon toward the body. When Wang Lin flew by, the body was bound by the dragon tendon and floated behind him. The 3 bodies of the core formation cultivators became like 3 feathers of a peacock's tail, and Wang Lin was the head. The third one. Wang Lin's face was gloomy as he placed the golden core inside his bag of holding and flew toward his next target. Li Muwen looked at everything that was happening before her. Even though she was prepared, she couldn't help but be shocked. Wang Lin's strength was deeply engraved in her heart. Qian Hai was an elder of the Fighting Evil sect who normally enjoyed a lot of respect. He knew that his speed wasn't fast enough, so after running for a while, he dug a big hole in the ground, withdrew his presence and buried himself. When he was only at the foundation establishment stage, he had used this trick many times. As he lied underground, he couldn't help but let out a bitter smile and think about how long it had been since he had to use this life-saving technique. He let out a sigh, but his sigh froze in his mouth as his eyes suddenly widened, revealing the red lightning flashing across it. Blood endlessly flowed out of his orifices and red lightning filled his soul. A golden thread drilled into the ground, grabbed Qian Hai's body, and dragged it out along with a large chunk of dirt. The fourth one. The dragon tendon split into 4, holding a body in each thread. Aside from the one body without a head, the remaining bodies were all complete and covered in blood, which made them look very frightening. After killing 2 people, the coldness in Wang Lin's eyes had not only not lessened but became even stronger as he continued to chase. 1 hour later, the number of bodies behind Wang Lin had risen from 4 to 9. The last remaining person was the head elder, Qian Kuan, who ran away first. The more he ran, the more scared he became. This fear reached its peak as his divine sense detected Wang Lin and the 9 bodies flying behind him. His scalp went numb at the sight. In just this short period of time, Wang Lin was able to kill all of the other core formation cultivators. What kind of cultivation level was needed to do something like this? Could he be a nascent soul cultivator? Qian Kuan's heart shook at the thought of this idea, but he quickly dismissed it. When they were chasing Wang Lin before, they clearly saw through his cultivation level. He was only at the peak of the foundation establishment stage, a pseudo-core formation cultivator. If that wasn't the case, they wouldn't have chased so leisurely. However, everything happened too fast, to the point that Qian Kuan still thought that he was daydreaming. Only this dream was a nightmare. As Wang Lin closely followed behind, his eyes became even colder. He sneered as he looked at Qian Kuan before him. This Qian Kuan was, after all, mid-stage core formation cultivator, so he was several times faster than the others. However, flying at this speed would waste a lot of spiritual energy, so Wang Lin was in no rush. Once Qian Kuan starts to run out of spiritual energy, he will have to slow down. Qian Kuan clenched his teeth and turned his head. He remembered that there was a fighting evil sect branch nearby with 2 core formation cultivators in charge. He hoped that they could hold Wang Lin off long enough for him to save himself. He used 120% of his spiritual energy as he charged toward the branch of the fighting evil sect. Wuding Mountain was a huge mountain with many lofts built on top of it. It used to be the home of a very large sect thousands of years ago, but after they fell from power, they were wiped out by the fighting evil sect and became a branch of the fighting evil sect. On this day, the disciples of the branch were cultivating when the 2 core formation elders in charge, the brothers Mu Nan and Mu Bei, opened the door and went out. In the air, Qian Kuan was battered and exhausted. He didn't even wait until he got close to shout, "Mu Nan, Mu Bei, I order the 2 of you to gather all of the disciples at Wuding and stop the person behind me. Do not allow this person leave Wuding Mountain. If you succeed, I'll reward you 2 with 10,000 high-quality spirit stones." With that, he fled in panic. The moment Mu Nan and Mu Bei walked out, they heard the head elder's words and were startled. How would the 2 of them be able to stop someone even the head elder had to run away from? Just at this moment, Wang Lin appeared before their eyes. The 2 of them wondered what kind of person would force even the head elder to run away. The moment they saw Wang Lin, they were shocked, especially after seeing the 9 bodies flying behind him. The 2 of them carefully looked at each other. Their faces changed color repeatedly. Mu Nan bursted out, "The 9 elders from headquarters, this is..." Mu Bei took a deep breath. He felt chills all over his body. He quickly dragged Mu Nan and respectfully said, "Junior Mu Bei greets Senior." Mu Nan's body shivered and he quickly said, "Junior Mu Nan greets Senior." Wang Lin coldly looked at the 2. He went past them without slowing down. That one look caused their skins to crawl. Their backs were soon covered in sweat. Qian Kuan had been flying at top speed for such a long time that his spiritual energy was about to run out. He quickly took out some pills, but just this pause allowed Wang Lin to close in even further. Seeing that Wang Lin was getting closer and closer, he let out a pitiful smile before turning around and giving Wang Lin a vicious look. He clenched his teeth and took out a red token from his bag of holding. On this token was the word "Punish" written in dark red. This token was the famous 10,000 Devils 100-day kill order token in the Sea of Devils. This token came from ancient times, and the method of making them has been long lost. Even in the Sea of Devils, there were only 10 or so remaining. Qian Kuan accidentally obtained it and immediately refined it. He was afraid of others finding out about it and had always kept it as his ace. He was hoping to use this to help increase the power of his techniques in the future. The requirement for activating this token was very strict. It required someone at the core formation stage or higher to trade their life to activate it. The person who activates it will have their entire cultivation refined into a pill, which will be gifted to the person who manages to kill the target. Because of the special ability of this token, whenever a demonic cultivator sees someone who is marked, they will attack them. It was also because of this strict requirement that the owners of the tokens rarely ever used them themselves. They would find a core formation cultivator and force them to use it. As for the target, they could just find someone nearby. That way, they could easily obtain a cultivation pill. As a result, the amount of tokens has greatly decreased, so even saying that there were 10 tokens left might be a little too much. XIAN also originally planned to force someone to use the token. But now that he was about to die, he became ruthless and waited for Wang Lin to catch up. Anyone who is marked by token rarely lasts 100 days if they are within the Sea of Devils. However, if they can last more than 100 days, then they can devour the pill themselves. Seeing Wang Lin closing in, XIAN held the 10,000 Devils 100-day kill order and shouted, "Stop! Do you know this token? I have refined this with my soul. If you kill me, you will be marked by the kill order. Today's matter is my fault, but you have already killed 9 elders, so why kill more? If you spare me, I can refer you and allow you to become a head elder at the fighting evil sect like me. How about it?"